Welcome, everybody. Today might be a long day, so thank you all for joining us. Welcome to today's meeting. We're happy to have you here, whether you're joining in person or online. We'll help you continue to participate in whichever manner you feel the most comfortable. We are, again, going to be wearing 3 different hats today: the Local Building Authority, the Redevelopment Agency Board, and the Salt Lake City Council. But before we get into any of those things, the first item on our agenda is the Pledge of Allegiance. So if you'll please stand and join me for the Pledge of Allegiance. I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all. Thank you, and thank you again for everyone who is joining. Before we move through the agenda, I will remind everyone about our rules of decorum, which are in place to ensure that our meetings move along well. To help everyone feel comfortable sharing their comments, a full copy of the rules of decorum are available at the door, and our staff will post the link in Zoom. Our business items tonight, including public hearings regarding the proposed budgets for the fiscal year 2024 to 25 for each entity. If you need to speak with our staff, please raise your hand in the room or in Zoom, and a staff person will assist you. For those of you in Zoom, our staff person Isaac Canedo can assist you with registration issues or technical questions. Taylor Hill, another staff member, will be calling the names of those who wish to comment based on the order we receive the names. If you're on Zoom, please unmute your mic when Taylor calls your name. Each person will have 2 minutes, and we will call on each person who has signed up to speak. Just a reminder, our goal is to create and keep a safe space for everyone to share and participate in the meeting, so please follow the public comment rules when making your remark. Disruptions or threats to anyone's safety are not allowed. If anyone uses discriminatory language, curses, or a disruption occurs, we will pause your comment and remind you about the rules of decorum. So we're now convened as the Local Building Authority, and we're on section B1 as the Local Building Authority, which is a public hearing related to a resolution for the budget for the Local Building Authority for fiscal years 2024 through 2025. Before we begin taking comments, I believe Jennifer Bruno from City Council staff has a short introduction to this item. Is that correct, Jennifer?
Sorry. The first hearing will address the fiscal year 25 budget for the Local Building Authority, or the LBA. The LBA is the city's financing mechanism to build facilities such as the Glendale and Marmalade libraries. This budget is the tool to pay off those bonds each year. While the title and some of the wording in the agenda references capital projects, this does not include any of the capital projects reviewed and recommended by the mayor in the general fund CIP log. That hearing will be addressed later this evening in the general fund or in the city council portion. An additional public hearing on the Local Building Authority budget will be held on June 4th at 7 p.m. Thanks.
And Taylor, before we go through comments, we did mention the rules of decorum, but just make sure that your comments are on topic to the thing that we're discussing. There is an opportunity for general comment later in the meeting. You need to be signed up for that by 7:30 if you want to comment on anything that is not on our agenda today. And then there are a lot of people here that are passionate about different things as other people are, and there may be people here who have opposing viewpoints. So as comments are made, please don't make any snapping or clapping or cheering, and of course no booing or anything like that, just so that everyone feels safe to share whatever viewpoint that they have, and stay on topic for the assigned public hearings. Thank you. So Taylor, why don't we start with public comment on this item?
Thank you, Mr. Chair. There is one person registered to speak to that item, and that will be Riley Hewlett. Riley, you may now unmute.
Is Riley here in person? All right, let's go to the next comment. Or you said that was the only comment, right?
That is the only comment.
All right, great. Seeing that Riley's not here, I will look for a motion.
Mr. Chair, I move that the council close the public hearing and refer the item to a new public hearing on June 4th, 2024.
Second.
I have a motion from Councilmember Dugan and a second from Councilmember Young. Is there any discussion to this motion? Seeing none, all those in favor say aye.
Aye.
Any opposed say nay. I'm an aye, so that passes unanimously. So this concludes the local building authority meeting. I guess I need to ask for a motion to adjourn as the local building authority and convene as the redevelopment agency board.
Move to adjourn and reconvene as the RDA board.
Second.
Motion from Councilmember Pui, second from Councilmember Wharton. Any discussion of this motion? Seeing none, all those in favor say aye.
Aye.
Aye. Any opposed say nay. That passes unanimously. We are now convened as the redevelopment agency board. As the redevelopment agency, we are here to receive public comment on item D1, which is a resolution for the budget for the redevelopment agency for the Salt Lake City, redevelopment agency of Salt Lake City for fiscal year 2024 through 25. Same rules apply here, and I believe Jennifer is going to give us an introduction to this as well.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. This next public hearing pertains to the fiscal year 25 budget of the redevelopment agency as proposed by the mayor. If there are comments about the proposed city or library budgets, those comments should be presented to the council in the item later tonight. This budget was discussed in a work session last week, and recordings and a staff report can be found on the council's budget website at tinyurl.com/SLCFY25. An additional public hearing on the redevelopment agency budget will be held on June 4th at 7 p.m.
All right, thank you, Taylor. Please start with our first comment.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. We also have one person registered to speak to this item, which is Riley Hewlett. If they are able to unmute now, Riley, you can now unmute. Okay, it appears they are still unavailable.
All right, thank you. So I'll look for a motion.
Mr. Chair, I move that the council close the public hearing and refer the item to a new public hearing on June 4th, 2024.
Second.
Motion from Councilmember Dugan, a second from Councilmember Lopez Chavez. Any discussion to this motion? Seeing none, all those in favor say aye.
Aye.
Any opposed say nay. Motion passes unanimously. So I will look for a motion to, Yes. Look for a motion to conclude our redevelopment agency board meeting and convene as a Salt Lake City Council.
Move to adjourn the RDA and to reconvene as the City Council of Salt Lake City.
Motion from Councilmember Pui, second from Councilmember Wharton. Any discussion of this motion? Seeing none, all those in favor, aye.
Aye.
Any opposed say nay. Motion passes unanimously. All right, we are now convened as a body of the Salt Lake City Council. Thank you for joining us tonight. Before we move through the agenda, I'll explain our updated general comment registration process and remind everyone about the rules of the quorum. Individuals may register for comment on scheduled public hearing all the way through until when that public hearing item is closed. But for the general comment, you need to sign up by 7:30 p.m. The general comment section also has a 1-hour time limit. So if we cannot get through all of the general comments in 1 hour, unfortunately, you'll have to give us your comments through email or by calling our phone comment line. However, the individual comments that are on items that we are specifically here to hear comment about and things that we are going to be voting on soon do not have a time limit. So those we will accept as many comments as people are here to make. Same things as before. Please don't react to other people's comments and keep your comments on topic. Avoid threatening or discriminatory language. Avoid clapping, cheering, shouting, booing, snapping, gesturing, obstructing, or discouraging others from commenting. So with that, we will move on to item F2 of tonight's agenda. That is approving the work session meeting minutes of March 5th, 2024, March 19th, 2024, and April 2nd, 2024, as well as the formal meetings minutes of March 5th, 2024, and the retreat meeting minutes of January 23rd, 2024.
Move for approval.
Second.
Motion from Councilmember Pui, second from Councilmember Wharton. Any discussion to this motion? Seeing none, all those in favor say aye.
Aye.
Aye. Any opposed say nay. That motion carries unanimously. This brings us to item F3, which is the council will consider a joint ceremonial resolution with Mayor Mendenhall celebrating June 2024 as Pride Month. I'm going to turn the time over to Councilmember Wharton, who will read the resolution.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. This is a joint ceremonial resolution celebrating June 2024 as Pride Month in Salt Lake City. Whereas the month of June is traditionally recognized as Pride Month in commemoration of the Stonewall Riots of 1969, a moment that sparked change and are widely considered to be among the most important events leading to the gay liberation movement and the modern fight for lesbian, gay, bisexual, transgender, and queer plus rights in the United States. And whereas some of the most inspiring moments in our history have emerged from the various civil rights movements that have brought one group after another from the margins to the mainstream of American society. And whereas Pride Month celebrates and recognizes a community that includes people who are lesbian, gay, bisexual, transgender, queer, two-spirited, pansexual, asexual, gender fluid, non-binary, intersex, as well as allies. And whereas Salt Lake City acknowledges that the LGBTQ plus community, and in particular Indigenous, Black, and other queer people of color and transgender individuals, have faced and continue to face systemic discrimination, including restricted rights, social stigma, challenges accessing healthcare, housing, and other essential social services, and startling rates of violence. And whereas Salt Lake City has a proud history of leading the state and many other cities across the nation in enacting policies and programs that stand against discrimination and promote equality, opportunity, and prosperity for all members of the LGBTQ plus community, regardless of their race, religion, gender, identity, or sexual orientation. And whereas Pride Month will be an uplifting reminder of how much we have to celebrate and should prompt us to remain diligent and committed in our efforts to ensure full equality, inclusion, and empowerment for every member of our LGBTQ plus community. And whereas from June 1st to June 2nd, the Utah Pride Center, a community space for all LGBTQ plus Utahns, will host Pride Week, a celebration of the LGBTQ plus community with events and festivities. Now, therefore, be it resolved that the Salt Lake City Council and Mayor of Salt Lake City recognize June 2024 as Pride Month in Salt Lake City. Be it further resolved, Salt Lake City encourages and welcomes all residents and visitors to embrace Pride Month's message of equality and unity and enjoy its celebrations this June in peace, safety, and love. And I have a copy of that resolution here, Mr. Chair.
Thank you, Councilmember Wharton. I'll first look for a motion about adopting the ordinance.
Mr. Chair, I move that we adopt the resolution.
Second.
Thank you. Motion from Councilmember Pui and Wharton, and second from Councilmember Lopez Chavez. Any discussion to the motion? All those in favor say aye.
Aye.
Any opposed say nay. The motion carries unanimously. We're going to take a short moment and welcome Chad Call, Executive Director from the Utah Pride Center, and Jess Corser, Board of Directors Chair with Utah Pride Center, to receive the resolution. If you're here and you would like to say any words to the resolution, you're welcome to come up to the podium and do so, and we'd love to take a picture with you.
Can you hear me now? Good. On behalf of the Utah Pride Center and the entire LGBTQ community that we serve, we thank you for passing this and recognize the importance of symbolism like this in our community and the marginalized individuals that we serve.
Thank you.
Okay.
Should we take a photo?
All right, you want to come join us up here and we'll take a photo?
Okay, I have a whole lot of stuff to read, so while they're greeting each other, I will go through that. So thank you for joining us in listening to that resolution. This brings us to the council public hearing sections of our agenda, which I think a lot of you are probably here for. These are specific proposals before the council that require a public hearing, and your comments need to pertain to the hearing topic. If your comments go off topic, we will ask you to stop. This will serve as your only warning. If you would like to comment on these public hearing items today, we are accepting comments in person and online through Zoom. You can sign up to comment until the hearing is closed. If you need to speak with our staff, please raise your hand in the room or in Zoom, and a staff person will assist you. In Zoom, the staff person is Isaac Canedo, who can assist you with registration issues or technical questions. Taylor Hill is a staff member who's going to be calling the names based on when we received those names, either through a comment card or online. Each person will have 2 minutes to speak, and we will call on each person who has signed up to speak. Just as a reminder, our goal is to create and keep a safe space for everyone to share and participate in this meeting. If anyone uses discriminatory language, curses, or disruption occurs, we will pause your comment and remind you about the rules of decorum. Let's see. The first public hearing is on items G1 through G7. Those will all be heard as one public hearing. And before we begin taking comments, I will turn the time over to Sylvia Richards, Council Staff Policy Analyst, who is joining us by Zoom to give us an introduction to these items.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. There are 7 grants tonight. The first 4 grants relate to the Building Resilient Infrastructure and Communities, or BRIC program. First is the 2023 BRIC Salt Lake City Regional Water System Resiliency Grant, which would address seismic, flooding, and drought vulnerabilities of Big Cottonwood Treatment Plant and Parley's Water Treatment Plant in the event of a natural disaster. The project would protect the use of critical water supplies for treatment and distribution by lessening impacts of seismic and flood events and droughts. Second is the 2023 BRIC Sewer Trunk Line Improvements Grant, which would install pipe liner and reinforced plastic pipe through 1200 West Trunk Line, as well as lining or replacement of manholes. Third is the 2023 BRIC Fix the Bricks Program Grant, which would continue funding the seismic improvements on private single-family residences and duplexes. This grant requests 1 new FTE. Fourth is the 2023 BRIC Community Rating System Enrollment, Implementation, and Public Outreach Grant. If awarded, the Public Utilities Department would engage in a public outreach program to educate homeowners about a reduced FEMA flood insurance rate and educate contractors and developers about requirements for building a floodplain. Fifth is the Cornell Wetland Demonstration Space on the Jordan River Commission Weed Maintenance Program, and if awarded, invasive species will be removed from the Jordan River. Restoration of upland and wetland habitat on the Jordan River will begin from 700 North to 10th North. Sixth is the Transportation and Land Use Connect TLC Program Grant. If awarded, a study will be funded for potential redesign of one-way streets, 500 South and 600 South, from I-15 to approximately 700 East to reduce transportation barriers for pedestrians and bicyclists. Seventh is the Utah Department of Public Services Safe First Responders Grant. And if awarded, the grant would fund 1 year of mental health and wellness platform tools for first responders, including wellness sessions, a wellness resource kit, learning modules, wellness sessions available online to first responders, their families, and retirees for early detection and intervention. Trainings will also be provided for Salt Lake City 911 personnel. And again, these are things for which the city has applied. Thank you, Mr. Chair.
Thank you, Sylvia. Taylor, please go to our first public comment.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. There are 2 people registered to speak to these items. The first will be Riley Hewlett, followed by Christina Robb. Riley, you may now unmute.
Can you hear me?
Yes, we can hear you.
Every grant that receives funding from Homeland Security should seek funding elsewhere. Asking for a grant from Homeland Security is inadvertently maintaining an agency known for racial profiling of Arab and Muslim populations. Homeland Security is responsible for mass surveillance, targeting, discrimination, and harassment of minoritized communities. Most recently, Homeland Security has targeted Palestinians and their supporters, and we shouldn't seek their dirty money. Specifically, G5 references removing invasive species. You clearly understand the danger of invasive species, but ignore the invasive destruction of colonial Israel and Palestine.
This commenter is off topic. Please mute.
Next will be Christina Robb, who is here in person.
Good evening. My name is Christina Robb, and I currently serve as chair of East Liberty Park Community Organization. The first thing I wanted to talk to you about was number 6. However, the introduction she gave was different than what I wanted to speak to today. I was here to talk about UDOT Safe Sidewalk Program in the Redwood Road area. We are excited to support this because this goes a long way to elevating the equitable implementation of our Vision Zero goals. The second thing I wanted to talk to you about was the grant application number 7 for the Utah Department of Public Safety First Responders Mental Health Grant. ELPCO spends a lot of time working with our first responders and actually having them coach us on a lot of issues that we want to support. We obviously think this is something that's so very important as the city grows and the calls increase and become more intense. Thank you for your time.
Thank you.
That was the final register commenter for this item.
Thank you, Taylor. I'll look for a motion.
Mr. Chair, I move that the council close the public hearing and refer items G1 through G7 to a future consent agenda for action.
Second.
Motion from Councilor Dugan and second from Councilmember Pui. Any discussion of the motion?
Yes, Chair.
Yes.
There is one of the grants, I'll have to go back and reference it, that the revenue will pay the wages for an existing full-time employee and then add 2 more. I want to be sure that we're advertising that appropriately as work that is commensurate with the term of the grant and doesn't inadvertently become extra workforce that we don't opt to support with the general fund in the future.
All right, thank you. And I'll just note that I did notice that the introduction to item 6 was a little bit different. So we'll work with council staff and the attorney's office to see if we need to reschedule that item or what we need to do. But I also noticed that the introduction was a bit different. Okay, I'll call sorry, was there any discussion to that motion? Oh, you already made the discussion. I'll call the question. All those in favor say aye.
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 Aye. Any opposed say nay. That passes unanimously. Okay, that brings us to item G8, which is a public hearing on a resolution authorizing assistance for Fairmont Heights Senior Housing Development at 2257 South, 1100 East. Before taking comment, Allison Rowland, another council staff policy analyst, also joining through Zoom, will give us an introduction.
Good afternoon. The Fairmont Heights Senior Housing Development Project would provide approximately 110 units of new affordable senior housing on nearly an acre of property at 2257 South and 1100 East. The mayor's administration intends to provide $5.6 million in one-time so-called dormant funds from the Community Development Block Grant, or CDBG, program. The council allocated these funds for an affordable housing project in last year's budget. A public hearing is required on the administration's informal public benefits analysis and proposal for below market rate assistance to the developer, the Housing Authority of Salt Lake City. Council action is tentatively scheduled for June 4th.
Thank you, Allison. Taylor, please start with our first public comment.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. There is one person registered to speak to this item. That will be Riley Hewlett. Riley, you may now unmute.
Hello again. I want to just start by saying that I may draw some parallels that seem off topic, but like we learned in elementary school, You have to make parallels to get your point across. But I would like to, I support senior housing. I think it is great. I would like more of a definition of what senior housing looks like. I think it should be at most assisted living centers. I don't think it should be homes where seniors cannot leave. I also want to note that generations of families and seniors have been lost in Gaza, and so we really have to protect our elders.
Please mute.
And
Taylor, are there any other comments?
That was the final registered commenter for this item.
All right, thank you. I'll look for a motion.
Chair, I move that the council close the public hearing and adopt the resolution.
Second.
Any discussion of the motion? Seeing none, all those in favor say aye.
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 Any opposed say nay. That motion passes unanimously. That brings us to item G9. G9 is another public hearing related to the fiscal year 2024 through 25 budget for the Metropolitan Water District preview and their property tax proposal. Before taking comments, I'll provide a quick introduction. This is a specific hearing to the Metropolitan Water District proposed property tax increase, which is proposed to generate revenue of $6.77 million from Salt Lake City taxpayers. Property tax revenue from Salt Lake and Sandy residents generates about a quarter of the district's revenue, which is used to collect and treat water. Based on a $549,000 home value, the proposed increase would be about $49 per year on your tax bill. Also, a reminder that any public comments not on this topic will be stopped. Taylor, please start with our first public comment.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. There are two people registered to speak to this item. The first will be Riley Hewlett, followed by Amy Leach. Riley, you may now unmute.
hi again. Guess you didn't understand the meaning of a parallel, but I guess that's your education, not mine. Clean water is important. I support tax money going to it. I am devastated that in Rafah and Gaza, they have no clean water available to them.
Thank you.
Next will be Amy Leach. Amy, you may now unmute.
Thank you. This is actually not the one I wanted to speak to, so I can pass.
And that was our final registered commenter.
All right, thank you. I will look for a motion.
Mr. Chair, I move that the council close the public hearing and adopt the resolution.
Second.
Motion by Councilmember Pui, second by Councilmember Dugan. Is there any discussion to this motion?
Yes.
Yes.
Mr. Chair, I mentioned in the work session earlier today when we were talking about this, but I think it is worth repeating. But it is always tough to talk about races and taxes, but water is as precious as it is in our state. We need to put the investment where it needs to be, and this will keep our water safe for future generations. So I strongly support this. So thank you.
Mr. Chair, may I?
Councilmember Lopez Chavez.
I want to echo those sentiments. We don't want to end up like a headline that says similar to Flint, Michigan. We want to secure our infrastructure for generations to come. This is an important and necessary investment in our city. And as we grow as a city, we see water conservation actually being something that we utilize as a tool. So we have a growing population that uses less and less water. This is important to me, and I support this.
Thank you. Any other council members? All right, I will call the question. All those in favor say aye.
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 Any opposed say nay. Motion passes unanimously. Okay, that brings us to item G10. G10 is an ordinance for the library budget amendment number 3 for the current fiscal year 23 through 24. Ben Ludke, council staff policy analyst, is here in person to give us a short introduction. Hi, Ben.
Sorry, Ben, could you test? Yeah. Okay, SLCTV. The podium mic. Ben, would you test again, please? Yeah.
This will work. Each year in the annual budget, the library conservatively estimates the amount of property tax increment that it will receive over the next 12 months. Then, mid-year in a budget amendment, which is what's before the council today, the library adjusts those estimates up or down to the actual amounts that are received. These are legally required pass-throughs that ultimately go to the Utah Inland Port Authority, the Convention Center Hotel, and the Redevelopment Agency. Thank you.
Thank you, Ben. Taylor, please start with our first comment.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. There are 3 people registered to speak to this item. The first will be Levy Woodruff, followed by Riley Hewlett, and then Monica Hilding. Levy, you may now unmute.
Good evening. Can you hear me?
Yes, we can hear you.
Right. Well, thank you for your time tonight. My name is Levy Woodruff, and I'm just speaking on my own behalf. And I am just speaking in favor of increases to the library system budget that will enable the library to continue operating. I think especially in this time when librarians, libraries, and especially school librarians are under attack by certain legislators and interest groups that like to portray them as somehow harming children, it's important that we show support for our public libraries, for the safe spaces and the education that they provide, and for the opportunity for our children and adults to have access to knowledge, not only in the form of books, but also music, movies, internet from around the world, because it enriches our lives, and also the safe spaces that libraries often offer to our unsheltered relatives and other community members. So I just, again, want to speak in support of whatever funding the library needs to continue operating and providing these vital services to the community. Thank you very much.
Next will be Riley Hewlett, followed by Monica Hilding. Riley, you may now unmute.
Okay, you do clearly understand parallels. So like I have a genuine question, like why it's okay when you draw a parallel to Flint, Michigan, but not when I do to a very similar worse situation. I know you can't really answer that. I mean, you could if you wanted to, but you don't want to, do you? I love libraries. It's where I have become educated, why I am before you. I've gone to libraries since I was young. It's a perfect place that feels safe for kids to go. One of the books I've checked out at the library is Queer Palestine and the Empire of Critique. It draws parallels between queer liberation, like you were discussing earlier today, as well as Palestinian liberation. It's a great read if you actually want to educate yourselves. It shows how the struggles are not one or the other, it is for both. Other books that I have read from the library include One State, the only democratic resolution for Palestine, Israel. It discusses how Israel has been a colonizing force in Palestine for many years. So you can't just get rid of them, even though you would like to, even though that's probably Palestinians' right. It discusses once Palestinians are able to have democracy, which they don't because they live under a military occupation that is killing them daily and now committing genocide against them.
Next will be Monica Hilding. Monica, you may now unmute.
Good evening. Thank you very much for the opportunity to speak in support of our public libraries. I am thrilled to support public libraries. However, I object to having my property taxes raised to support the Utah Inland Port Authority, which is one of the things that is listed here in the amendment. And I don't understand how that is related to the public library and why that should be part of a public library's budget. I think that the Utah Inland Port Authority has plenty of funds from the city already. And the funds that it has from the city are not being spent in the way that the city would like to spend those funds. So why is a budget amendment including the Utah Inland Port Authority in an amendment for supporting public libraries? How is that related? I'm very confused. I absolutely am against my property taxes going to an organization like the Utah Inland Port Authority that is doing so much damage all over the state of Utah. Thank you very much.
That was the final registered commenter for this item.
Mr. Chair,
All right, yeah, I'll look for a motion.
I move that the council close the public hearing and adopt an ordinance amending fiscal year 2024 final budget of the Salt Lake City Library, including the employment staffing documents as proposed.
Second.
All right, the motion is by Councilmember Pui and the second is by Councilmember Dugan. Any discussion to this motion? All those in favor say aye.
Aye.
Any opposed say nay. That motion also carries unanimously. Let me catch my place. Okay, our next public hearing is for items G11 through G19, all of the ordinances that are associated with the implementation of the mayor's recommended budget for Salt Lake City, including the library fund for the next fiscal year 2024 through 25. This is our first of two budget public hearings. The second will be on June 4th. And before we begin taking comments, Jennifer Bruno will give us an introduction to this item.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. As you noted, the council considers all ordinances relating to the fiscal year budget in one public hearing, as they're all needed collectively to implement the mayor's recommended budget for fiscal year 25, including the library. Tonight's public hearing addresses ordinances G11 to G19. These various ordinances address fees, compensation, set property tax rates, and budget levels, among other items. For those that may not be aware, departments are discussed in greater detail at each of the council's public work sessions through May and June, which typically start at 1 p.m. Recordings of those discussions are available online on the council's website as are staff analyses of each department. More information can be found at tinyurl.com/SLCFY25. And an additional public hearing on the city's annual budget and these related ordinances will be held on June 4th at 7 p.m. Thanks.
Thank you, Jennifer. Taylor, please start with our first public comment.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. There are 7 people registered to speak to this item. The first will be Riley Hewlett, followed by N Canada, and then Chris Butler. Riley, you may now unmute.
Yeah, I'd specifically like to comment on G19. What is the compensation adjustment? Because I know you don't think you deserve more funding for doing absolutely nothing, while some of your constituents work minimum wage of $7.25 an hour and sometimes even less than that. The mayor is suggesting over $200,000 a year, which is way more than our teachers make, some doctors make. What is she doing other than camp abatements and moving your constituents away from their temporary housing with camp abatements, and instead of housing them, sticking the police on them, as well as recently sticking the police on college students? So no, I do not approve this, especially G19 budget amendment, where specifically Mayor Aaron Mendenhall is extremely greedy and hates poor people, hates unhoused people, hates her constituents, but wants to take all of their money. Unacceptable, diabolical, despicable, disgusting.
Next will be in Canada, followed by Chris Butler and then Ernest Sanchez. And you may now unmute.
Hi there, in Canada, D5. I want to oppose the increase for police, the police budget. So many times in the city, I've seen cops patrolling areas that have nothing going on, or way too many cops showing up for something that's not going on, especially when it comes to our unhoused relatives. Persecuting the unhoused relatives. There's like 4 cop cars and there's one person just like sitting on the side of the street, not doing anything. So I really think that the police budget is bloated and is not leading to a safer Salt Lake. So yeah, I think that we should definitely not be increasing the police budget and have them be more efficient with their resources, because I think that money can go to more important things like, lighting sidewalks, which leads to safer environments, or investing in the park system, because I know, there's a lot of improvements that need to happen, or investing in the green loop and, the walkable downtown street, or the pedestrian Broadway Street. So I think that there's many better things that the police budget can be going to, rather than the already over saturated police budget. And additionally, I just want to comment on protecting our First Amendment rights during city council meetings, because it's fine to make allegories, to make to allude to other things and come back to your point. I don't think it's fair that you guys are deciding what is deemed okay. If it's Gaza, if it's Flint, if it's wherever, another city that we want to mention, it's not fair that you guys are deciding for people what is on topic and not on topic, especially when it's targeted towards people talking about Palestine as a Palestinian in Salt Lake City. Thank you.
Next will be Chris Butler, followed by Ernest Sanchez, and then Christina Robb. Chris, you may now unmute.
Okay, I am here to talk about the insane amount of money that we are giving the police department. It's 25% of the general fund is going to the cops, and that is nuts. Some things I would like to see is, one, taking the social workers and mental health workers out of the police department and into their own department. Police have shown that they cannot be in charge of mental health situations or the people who do the work. 2023 was the deadliest year in the last decade in America for people being killed by the police, with 1,247 people being killed across the country. Many studies over the last 40 years have shown that the size of the police force, if you increase it, it doesn't have any effect on preventing crime. So adding more officers is never going to be a good solution. And then the other thing with the budget that really sticks out to me is how much we're giving in overtime to the police. Any other profession that you can't get your job done in a work week, you would probably be fired. And what results are we seeing with this insane amount of overtime that all these cops are racking up? According to BYU professor Shima Bauman, fewer than half of serious crimes get reported to the police, and then fewer than 10% of the crimes actually result in arrest or clearance, and even less than 2% of those end in a conviction. So the police are failing to prevent crime, they're failing to solve crime, and they're just racking up millions and millions of our dollars.
Next will be Ernest Sanchez, followed by Christina Robb, and then Julian Jerkowick. Ernest is here in person.
Hello, my name's Ernie Sanchez from the District 2. There's so much I would like to say, but I'm going to stay on topic. I don't want to be dismissed. You're welcome on behalf of the taxpayers for your jobs. I don't believe in the taxes that you guys just keep wanting. The garbage is what got me here today. But listening to the police, you guys keep taxing. It's not just you, it's the county, and then it's the state, and then it's the federal. I'm almost to the point where I'm retired, but I can't stop working because I got taxes. I'll lose my house if I can't be paying all these taxes that you guys, it's $49 a year for this. It's $27 a year for that. You add it all up, somebody that's retired, it affects them. And I just want to say, you know, it's a shame on all of you. Voted for you. We voted for you. I'm ashamed of all of you. That's what I got to say.
Next will be Christina Robb, followed by Julian Jerkowicz, and then Sneti Karamia. Christina is here in person.
Hi again, my name is Christina Robb, and I am here to represent East Liberty Park Community Organization. Again, I want to thank you for passing Connect SLC, and thank Transportation for all the hard work they did on that. For the budget, we really want you to take a look at the Vision Zero part of that plan and put as much money towards that as you can. Specifically, we are interested in enforcement and education in youth culture. We've seen a huge upswing of Fast and Furious type behavior in our youth culture all over the city, but really does play out in our west side streets where there's a lot of space, as well as we're finding small streets around high schools. So, which really affects us in ELPCA. So thank you for considering that. The second thing we want to ask you about is short-term rentals in ELPCO are going through the roof. We just recently, we're in the middle of a survey of our properties to see how many of our single-family homes are really being utilized as rentals and things like that. So we're hoping that you can better fund the building and code enforcement to make sure that the housing stock stays for not only our families, but also our students that are at Westminster and University of Utah, which we are right in between. Also, I want to talk a little bit about access to those houses that are a barrier for building more ADUs, our alleys, especially on our hills where there's water, falling apart. So if we want to see a greater access, greater building, we're going to have to budget to improve those roadways to accesses to ADUs and cottages. Thank you.
Next will be Julian Jerkowicz, followed by Sneti Karamia, and then Judy Stroying. Julian is here in person.
Hi, my name is Julian Jerkowicz. Thanks for having me. I just wanted to voice my frustration with the lack of funding for the Green Loop project. The Public Land Department is slotted to receive only 30% of the funding which are requested for this project, and as a proud Salt Lake City resident and resident of District 4, I really firmly believe that this project is of great importance to our city, just in undoing some of the wrongs we've created with, wide, fast, dangerous streets and helping towards that Vision Zero, as previously mentioned. Though I'm heartened by both my Representative Councilwoman Lopez Chavez and Mayor Mendenhall's commitment to this project, I am disappointed to see the disconnect between this commitment and the proposed budget. Thank you very much for your time.
Next will be Sneti Karamia, followed by Judy Stroying. Sneti is here in person.
Sneti, are you here in person or in the overflow room? Snetee. It does not look like they're here, Taylor. Let's move to the next commenter. And we can come back if they show up.
Judy Stroying. Judy, you may now unmute.
Judy, are you here? And I don't think Sneti has shown up. So, Taylor, is that our last comment?
That is the last commenter for this item.
Okay, if either of those commenters would like to comment, you can obviously email us or send us a phone message, but there is another public hearing on the same item on June 4th. So there's another opportunity to comment on these same things.
Mr. Chair,
Yes.
I move that the council close the public hearing for items G11 through G19 and refer them to a new public hearing on June 4th, 2024.
Second.
Motion from Councilor Dugan, second from Councilmember Lopez Chavez. Any discussion to the motion? Seeing none, all those in favor say aye.
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 Any opposed say nay. Motion carries unanimously. All right, that brings us, oh, I gotta flip some pages. This brings us to the final public hearing item, which is G20, public hearing for the Capital City Revitalization Zone. Before taking public comments, Nick Tarbett from council staff will give us a short introduction. Nick is here in person. Oh, a long introduction.
All right, thank you. Earlier this year, the state legislature passed Senate Bill 272, which established the process and timeline for creating a revitalization district centered around the Delta Center and Convention Center blocks of downtown Salt Lake City. The project has been called the Sports, Entertainment, Culture, and Convention District. The key components of the bill, which the city is currently working on, and tonight's public hearings pertain to, include allowing the city to consider raising the sales tax by 0.5% citywide, and a participation agreement that specifies how that money would be spent within the district. This agreement must be sent to the State Revitalization Zone Committee by September 1, 2024. The statute allows for a revitalization zone up to 100 acres and is centered around an existing or planned stadium. The city received an application from Smith Entertainment Group to create a project area around the Delta Center. The city is currently reviewing the application and negotiating terms of the proposed participation agreement, which outlines how the city and Smith Entertainment Group could utilize the proposed sales tax revenue. Additionally, the city is processing a zoning amendment filed by the Smith Entertainment Group that would modify zoning standards for the blocks within the proposed Sports, Entertainment, Cultural, and Convention District. The city's Planning Commission will discuss this amendment at the June 12th hearing. It will then come to the council for consideration later this summer. Again, tonight's public hearing is an opportunity for the public to provide feedback on the proposed sales tax increase and proposal for the Sports, Entertainment, and Cultural Convention District. Mike Mon from the Smith Entertainment Group is here to provide a quick overview of the proposal, and the council will then accept public comment.
Okay, Mike.
Thank you so much for having us here today. Appreciate the council, appreciate so many members of the community being here, and appreciate the opportunity we've had over the last many months to meet with so many amazing community organizations, from the Symphony Board to the Downtown Alliance, from UMOCA to Visit Salt Lake, to many members of the philanthropic and business community, to members of the Japantown community, and are deeply grateful for the collaboration of Mayors Mendenhall and Mayor Wilson as we've gone through this process. As I said, my name is Mike Mon. I'm an executive from Smith Entertainment Group and the principal from SEG who will lead the development of this project. If we could show the next slide, please. What we're talking about here is a sports, entertainment, culture, and convention district. This is about an opportunity to reimagine and revitalize our downtown community and create an incredible urban core. None of that happens without all four of these elements coming together. It must be sports, entertainment, culture, and community. Let me briefly speak to Abravanel Hall. The Salt Lake County Mayor and Salt Lake County Council met today on an agenda item regarding Abravanel Hall for over an hour and a half. And the county, which owns and operates Abravanel Hall, will make any decisions there, and they have our support with whatever they choose to do there, but are deeply grateful for the collaboration we have. I just want to say very clearly that at Smith Entertainment Group, we feel strongly that a symphony hall, that the arts stay on site, and that we continue to have that as a deep and important piece of what we're doing with this sports, entertainment, culture, and community district. When it comes to the economic impact, Smith Entertainment Group again intends to invest over $3 billion of private capital into the district. The Delta Center, the Utah Jazz, and NHL hockey are expected to produce over $600 million of economic impact to Salt Lake City every single year. Let me repeat that. The Delta Center, the Utah Jazz, and NHL hockey are projected to have over $600 million in economic impact to Salt Lake City every single year. With hockey alone, we're adding 40 to 50 nights of events downtown. But just to be clear, the arena itself is also not about sports alone. It hosts many, many concerts. It hosts speakers. It hosts events like Disney on Ice, various business conferences. We recently hosted an expungement clinic for individuals who needed to expunge a criminal record. We host career fairs for underserved youth at the arena, et cetera, et cetera. In just the first 15 days of October, there are only 2 days that are open because it's so packed right now. If we could go to the next slide, I just want to speak again to some of the principles that will guide the development as we go through this. Walkability, safety, sustainability, economic development, suitable parking, restoring the connectivity and flow of downtown. For example, Japantown right now is currently greeted by loading docks. We've had the wonderful opportunity to meet with and receive immense feedback from the Japantown community and have every intention to replace those loading docks with street-facing spaces to enliven the area. We'll also look at cohesive transportation planning, community partnerships, arts, cultural, and community gathering spaces. Next slide, please. One of the primary guiding principles here is that we are going there to tear down walls, not build new ones. We want to make sure that as we look at the connectivity and flow of downtown, that we can reconnect the east and west sides of downtown in a way that creates this incredible activated urban core for all of us downtown. I'll speak lastly to this one point. I know that this process is fast, but a fast process does not mean that it is not a deliberate one. This tax would be the first step, but to be very clear, this process will be in-depth, it will be deliberate, and it will be iterative. We are committed to being at the table with all of you to continue to collaborate with the council, with the mayor, and to continuing to work with these incredible community organizations that are downtown and to work collaboratively. We've also launched a website, reimaginedowntownslc.com. That is a place where people can go sign up to receive news and updates regarding the development, and also where people can provide feedback and suggestions. You'll also find a list there of organizations and individuals that we are working with who are supporting and collaborating on this project with us. Again, we're so grateful to all of you for your time and to the community for coming out to share their thoughts and feedback as well, and hope many people will engage with us on reimaginedowntownslc.com. Thank you so much.
All right, are there any more introductions before we go to public comment? There's some council member introductions. Councilmember Wharton.
Oh, thank you, Mr. Chair. I just want to just remind people quickly, and I appreciate Mike's mentioning this in his speech. I see that we have a lot of people that are here, I think, to speak to Bravenel Hall and want to hear those comments. I'm happy to hear those comments, but just want to be clear that ultimately that decision will not be made by this body. And also, I know that I've gotten a lot of feedback too about the timeline, that there is a timeline that's set by state legislation that we have to operate under. So again, I'm not trying to discourage anybody's comments. I'm just putting that out there for people who are about to comment to take that into consideration with your comments. Thank you.
Thank you, Councilmember Wharton. Councilmember Petro.
I also just wanted to put forth that the other level of government, the county, met or might be meeting concurrently with us or met earlier to discuss their asset, which is Bravenel Hall and UMOCA and the convention center, and to begin their preliminary discussions. We have not been briefed about those yet because we have been in our meetings since 11 a.m. this morning. But if you haven't checked what the notes are on that, and you are concerned about those things, that is a worthwhile time. And we are appreciative to the SEG group for making sure that you've been present in both of those areas today to navigate this and to make sure that each constituency is able to speak to you directly as well. So thank you.
Yeah, I do appreciate you being here to hear comment directly with us on this. Any more comments before we go to public comments? All right, let's move on to public. Taylor, why don't you please begin with our first comment?
Thank you, Mr. Chair. We have about 70 people registered to speak to this item. The first will be Bim Oliver, followed by Meg Averett, and then Levy Woodruff. Bim, you may now unmute.
Can you hear me?
Yes, we can hear you.
Thank you. Thanks for the opportunity to comment. I have to start by saying that the revitalization zone concept is deeply flawed. Nevertheless, based on public comments by the mayor and members of the city council, it looks as if adoption of the zone and the related sales tax increase is a done deal. We all know at this point who will benefit from this action. It certainly won't be the residents of Salt Lake City who will be required to invest in development concepts about which they know very little, if anything, and which, based on extensive experience in other cities, are unlikely to generate the lucrative returns promised by the Smith Entertainment Group. So I'm offering my own proposal in the hope of salvaging some positive public benefit from what at best would otherwise produce uncertain outcomes. That the City Council establish a set-aside from the sales tax increase to be dedicated to sharing in the financing of the renovation of Abravanel Hall, at a minimum $3.3 million per year for the 30-year lifetime of the tax increase, for a total of approximately half of the $200 million estimated renovation cost. The funds could be transferred to Salt Lake County through an interlocal agreement. Perhaps a smaller set-aside for the development of Japantown, which is long overdue. Even though it's owned by Salt Lake County, Abravanel Hall is really of Salt Lake City, and the city should share in financing its renovation. Our civic leaders constantly promote Salt Lake as a world-class city. Abravanel Hall is one of our few truly world-class buildings. It is an architectural icon that communicates a distinct sense of place. Even more significant, its reputation is international. Guest conductors and visitors from around the world have praised it as a superior concert hall. Participating in the renovation of this extraordinary building would make a world-class statement that would represent the highest and best use of the additional revenues. Thank you.
Next will be Meg Averett, followed by Levy Woodruff, and then Riley Hewlett. Meg, you may now unmute.
Can you hear me?
Yes, we can hear you.
Okay, thanks. Boy, the speaker right before me was very eloquent. I agree 100%. You know, I grew up going to the symphony. We used to go to the Tabernacle when I was young, and then moved to Abravanel Hall, which is an absolutely incredible space for the symphony. And so many people are drawn there, and the art center there. I think it would be a crime to move that building and not spend the money to renovate it because of its location. I'm not sure why the hockey field can't be somewhere west of the Delta Center, but to leave that art space intact, I believe is so important. Pretty much all the schools have eliminated music programs. I have a lot of hope that you guys will keep that center and spend the money to make it what it should be. And thanks for calling on me.
Next will be Levy Woodruff, followed by Riley Hewlett, and then Tracy O'Berry Covey. Levy, you may now unmute.
Hi, can you hear me?
Yes, we can hear you.
Right. Thank you for your time again tonight. I would like to use my time to amplify the letter that was sent to the mayor and the city council by Mr. Glenn Bailey, executive director of Crossroads Urban Center, on May 17th. And in this letter, Crossroads Urban Center calls for a requirement that any zoning amendment made to enable increased density in the proposed district around the Delta Center be contingent on the inclusion of an agreement that 10% of housing units built in that district be affordable to households earning less than $30,000 per year, and an additional 10% be affordable to households earning less than $60,000 per year. I would like to increase that and ask for a minimum of 20% units be affordable to households earning less than $30,000 and another 20% be affordable to households earning less than $60,000 per year. We have heard that the proposed redevelopment of this area is expected to bring in $600 million per year. And as Mr. Bailey's letter points out, $1 billion of the financing for development in this district will come from a sales tax increase on purchases made within Salt Lake City, a tax that is also paid by the very people who are struggling to afford their rent right now. We cannot give away so much land, so much money to developers and neglect to provide housing that is so desperately needed for the hardworking people who will be cleaning these developments, who will be working in the stores, who will be parking cars. If they are going to pay for this development, then they deserve to be able to afford housing in this area. And so I would urge that, again, any zoning amendment that is made to allow increased density require a minimum of 40% affordable housing, 20% for those making under $30,000 a year, and 20% for those under $60,000 a year. Thank you very much.
Next will be Riley Hewlett, followed by Tracy O'Berry Covey, and then N Canada. Riley, you may now unmute.
Like I guess most people are here for this. We reject the revitalization that seeks to remove residents and our unhoused kin. Why should taxpayers pay for the Smith Entertainment District? It is only for tourists and should be a tourist tax. This imagery is very similar to Israel's tourist plans for Palestine and Gaza by taking out beloved buildings and cultural centers while making the people impacted by it pay for it. And it is for their own benefit, not for the people's benefit. The people would never see $600 million that the person was talking about. We won't see that. Only the billionaires in charge of this project will see that outcome. Let the billionaire pay for it if he wants it so badly. If it makes so much, it should go directly back to the community. The cost of this project could house everyone in Utah. Someone also mentioned moving the hockey center west, which I also object to. If anything, it should be northeast. Pushing it west is gentrifying a neighborhood already experiencing gentrification. Also, if this goes through, as these projects usually do, against the people's consent, I ask, as the previous person before me said, that affordable housing, I think 40% is an understatement. I think all of the housing that it affords should be affordable housing. It shouldn't be for billionaires or millionaires or the rich. It should all be affordable housing that is ADA accessible. Again, all new construction should be ADA accessible, as it's likely we will all be disabled at one point in our lives. As 1 in 3 people in Palestine, for every person killed in Palestine, 3 are permanently disabled. We need infrastructure and language to protect refugees that will be coming disabled.
Next will be Tracy O'Berry Covey, followed by N Canada, and then Nathan Phillips. Tracy, you may now unmute.
Hi, can you hear me all right?
Yes, we can hear you.
Thank you. Firstly, I'd like to express my gratitude to the mayors for hearing concerns about preserving Abravanel Hall. It's a cherished and significant building in our community, designed specifically for its purpose and engineered for excellent sound. I'm hopeful that its legacy will continue for many years to come. I'm here tonight to discuss the Utah Museum of Contemporary Art, UMOCA. This 95-year-old organization is a vital part of our downtown, and it truly belongs in the heart of our city. As an artist, UMOCA matters to me. It also matters to a large portion of our population and to tourists. I have personally supported UMOCA for many years, having served as a board member, and I designed their past branding and marketing materials. During that time, I conceptualized colored neon lights to accentuate and draw attention to the main entrance to enhance its visibility because it was hard for visitors to find. While the exhibitions and events held at UMOCA are meaningful and highly significant, the building itself could be architecturally reimagined to draw visitors and the interior spaces enhanced and improved. I know that UMOCA is excited about the opportunity presented by the city, county, and SEG to reimagine downtown. Creating a new building for the museum within the district would allow UMOCA to better fulfill its mission and advance its strategic plan. Of course, funding for all of this needs to be secured from all parties, including support from the government and SEG, which is displacing the organization. UMOCA is prepared to contribute some financial resources to this endeavor. I'd like to thank the county for housing and supporting UMOCA for the past 50 years. And here's to continued support for many years to come in a beautifully reimagined, re-envisioned building to house.
Next will be N Canada, followed by Nathan Phillips, and then Dee Brewer. And you may now unmute.
Hi, N Canada D5. The 6 million per year economic impact that was mentioned under our system is wholly or majority being funneled to the top 1% who have abandoned our community, especially the middle and low income of our community and the people of color of our community. So I'm really sick and tired of wealthy people talking about these, numbers that might be convincing to people, when in reality, if you actually did the economic analysis, most of that money is going to the owner class. And we also need to raise the sales rate instead of, funding these projects to get our homeless community off the street, right? We could raise money, hundreds of millions of dollars, to actually support our community and make sure that when I'm looking across at Jefferson Park, I don't see like the destitution of my local community just sleeping outside, parked in RVs, can't afford a house. I am just so sick of it. And we need to stop abandoning our people and doing these small nibbly things while many of us are paycheck to paycheck and almost none of my peers can afford a house. I'm just turned 29. Additionally, I see my kin being murdered in Gaza, and I don't even see us taking care of our people here. And I just feel like there's no escape from the suffering. It's just everywhere I look, there's suffering, there's destitution, there's just cruelty. And I'm curious to see, based on your response to the outcry against your silence and complicity in the Palestinian genocide, I worry that no amount of public comment today will move.
Next will be Nathan Phillips, followed by Dee Brewer, and then Laura Alrad Harado. Nathan is here in person.
Hi, I was born in Utah, born and raised. I'm a small business owner. I live in Salt Lake City, District 4, and I'm in favor of this project and the new proposed tax. I've had hundreds of conversations with people that are opposed to this district project, and I found that there are basically 3 common objections to this, and I would like to address those right now. The number one common objection is that there are dozens of case studies from cities across America proving that public investment in an arena is a bad deal. My response to this is that this isn't even relevant. This district and investment are for so much more than just an arena. It's not comparable. There's not a comparable negative case study. In fact, there are actually positive case studies in cities such as Austin and Jacksonville. Objection 2 is that this investment will only benefit a billionaire and a few public officials. My response to this is that people are failing to see that a strong downtown not only benefits a city, but the entire region. Again, there are strong examples of this happening in Austin and Jacksonville, and there are bad examples of this happening in places such as San Francisco and St. Louis that have entered the doom loop. Investment in downtown drives not only investment in the downtown area, but across a region, and everyone will benefit. Objection 3 then is that people might concede, fine, if it's a good idea, then SEG should just pay for it. And to that I say that won't happen because SEG is not a charity. It is important that we create the proper incentives to make private investment happen. That does not mean that this is a bad deal. Public investment in a public good can benefit both the public and private sectors. With my final 26 seconds, I want to just close with my personal feelings. If we could enter the Spider-Verse and see Salt Lake City 20 years from now, both with and without this investment, I think, it's easy for us to see the cool way that it's going to connect to the Green Loop and the Main Street and walk down Japantown. I'm way excited about that. But what we don't see is the investment that might come 2 or 3 blocks away. We might not see that it might be the driver for a Major League Baseball team. It might be what keeps Sundance here or a convention coming. Thank you.
Thank you.
Next will be Dee Brewer, followed by Laura Allred Jurado, and then RJ Walker. Dee is here in person.
Thank you very much for your attention to this topic tonight. The Downtown Alliance was created by commercial property owners to invigorate downtown and promote it as the regional center for commerce, culture, and entertainment. The Alliance is an affiliate of the Salt Lake Chamber. I appreciate what Mike Mon said earlier. Some of my remarks address those and maybe echo them. I'm here to voice support for the proposed investments by Salt Lake City, by Salt Lake County, and Smith Entertainment Group to build what they have described as a downtown experience that will serve as the state's anchor for arts, for sports, for entertainment, and conventions. These ambitious investments build on the billions of dollars that our stakeholders have already invested downtown. Our data shows that sports, arts, entertainment, and conventions are the major drivers in the growing downtown economy. Patrons across the region enjoy downtown programming. Convention spending reduces the tax burden for all Salt Lake County residents. We sought input from our downtown property owners, merchants, destination marketers, and arts and entertainment producers. And they told us 5 things. They want these efforts to succeed. Stakeholders want the new asset to be integrated with the existing commercial nodes and the arts assets that are fueling the downtown economy. Planning should consider the myriad patron groups that infuse our city with energy and the variety of uses that attract patrons downtown day and night. Number 4, they want the planning process to incorporate transportation stakeholders to ensure optimal access to downtown and through downtown. Number 5, our stakeholders want the planning and execution of these investments to be done collaboratively.
Thanks, Dee.
Next will be Laura Allred Hurtado, followed by RJ Walker, and then Rick Seven. Laura is here in person.
Hi, Council. My name is Laura Allred Hurtado. I'm the Executive Director of the Utah Museum of Contemporary Art, and I'm here to present 5 points. 1, an organization versus a building. To many, the phrase when they hear UMOCA is going to be torn down creates a gut response, and it's heard as a complete sentence, ushering in fears of a deconstruction of an organization. I'm here to stand here publicly to those concerns and say that is not what is happening here. We know and have heard from all partners that UMOCA matters to us and to them, including Mayors Wilson, Mayors Mendenhall, and SEG, as well as the City Council, and to many others. And we believe that what we're being presented is a significant opportunity to address a problematic and aging facility. 2, a generational change. A new building located in this downtown district, in close proximity to the Symphony, holds the potential for seismic generational change and shows a deep investment from all parties in arts and culture. 3, partnering and funding. We are acting on faith that key partners will help financially support and realize this revisioning, and we look forward to continuing our collaborative conversations and for the arts organizations impacted, whose programming has helped shape this great American city over the last century. 4th, I want to express my gratitude. UMOCA has had the privilege to reside in a county-owned facility for 50 years. We are tenants. As our biggest champions and supporters, by far, we have a long history with Salt Lake County investing in us and believing in us. And I want to thank Mayor Wilson for their and the council for their transformative support. And thank you, Mayor Mendenhall and the City Council, as well as the City Arts Council, for your transformative support.
You can give us the rest of your comment through email. Thank you.
Next will be RJ Walker, followed by Rick Seven, and then Carolyn Abravanel. RJ is here in person.
I'm RJ from District 5, and I'm here today to speak on behalf of Salt Lake City's DIY arts community. I work with a nonprofit called AMP Utah. Our mission is to support Utah's independent artists. A lot of the artists here are completely starved of infrastructure. Salt Lake City doesn't even have a poet laureate program like our neighbors do, but despite the lack of institutional support, the artists here still find ways to be excellent. A Salt Lake City slam poet this year won the Women of the World Poetry Slam, the largest slam in the world, despite a lack of support. And don't get me wrong, I love the arts programming the city has. We just had Living Traditions. It was great. But artists require support year-round, and what is truly needed is space, free and affordable rehearsal and performance space, important third spaces where people can work on their craft and connect with their community. The Utah Arts Alliance just lost their art space in Southtown Mall for the sake of a hockey practice rink. And it's likely they'll lose the Utah Arts Hub as well for the sake of hockey. They'll lose that space, and that will displace hundreds of artists. We must also recognize that casual artists are critical to a healthy society. Salt Lakers require places to express themselves and connect with the people in their community. Open mic nights, sketch cabarets, and dance ciphers are critical to the mental and social well-being of the city. I know this because I teach creative writing in the state prison. And what I'm doing there is damage control, but what I do at open mic night is prevention. And we found that the artists will build this infrastructure on their own without billionaires or support. Kilby Court is the oldest DIY venue in town. And now the Kilby Block Party is the music festival to attend in the Mountain West. We're discussing plans for this new district. I'm asking for a commitment to make sure that we make space for artists at the beginning of their careers. You can't poison the well for the sake of building a drinking fountain. Thank you.
Next will be Rick 7, followed by Carolyn Abravanel, and then Frankie McIntyre. Rick is here in person.
Hi, everyone. I am Rick 7, the brand manager for Salt Lake Brewing Company. Salt Lake Brewing owns 7 restaurants and 2 breweries in Salt Lake and Park City, including the iconic Squatters Pub Brewery downtown. Since 1989, Squatters has been a favorite of locals and a repeat destination for visitors to our great city. Over the years, we have seen a lot of positive and amazing changes downtown, both culturally and physically. One thing that has been extremely reliable throughout the years is the consistency of growth in the business we see from conventions and out-of-town guests. This now accounts for nearly 50% of our business. After COVID, many people kept working remotely, leaving office spaces vacated downtown and destroying our once thriving lunch crowd and corporate meetings in our event spaces. The return of large conventions to the Salt Palace, the great work of Visit Salt Lake in promoting our city, and of course, the loyal residents of Salt Lake who have great taste in food and beer have helped us get back to a level where we can support the livelihoods of our 350 employees and their families. We cannot stress enough the value of these conventions, which happen year-round, not just during a season. They get hotel rooms occupied, private event spaces booked, and breakfast, lunch, and dinner sold. Large conventions are a huge key to elevating our downtown community. We hope that throughout this redevelopment, the impact on conventions is minimized, that the Salt Palace, which has been so vital to downtown growth, has no reduction in square footage and its ability to book large events. This is extremely important for us and to many other downtown businesses to be able to flourish, much as we have for the past 35 years. The Sports, Entertainment, Culture, and Convention, not community, convention district is an amazing opportunity to further elevate our downtown. But to do so, each one of these pillars must be elevated with equal thought and equal importance. And please, save Abravanel Hall. Thank you.
Next will be Carolyn Abravanel, followed by Frank McIntyre, and then Richard Walsh. Carolyn is here in person.
My name is Carolyn Abravanel. I live in Salt Lake City, and I am the widow of Marisa Abravanel. I am here to voice my opposition to the destruction of Marisa Abravanel Hall, and I ask each of you to scrutinize the untold impacts of voting to demolish this hall. What are the costs to our culture? If your vote to demolish a small class hall Let's remember that this land was a gift from the Church of Jesus Christ of Latter-day Saints because they understood the value of the symphony in that specific location. What does your vote say to the world about the priorities of Utah if you're willing to erase the past and a historical building just because it's easier and cheaper in that than to replace it? What does your vote say to the world about the values of Utah when a financial incentive is more important than saving an iconic landmark, the current home of the Utah Symphony Orchestra? Study what other cultures do. Do they replace their history, or do they reinvest in their historical icons? They reinvest because they place value in their historical buildings, and they take pride in honoring their past. As each of you cast your vote, what will your legacy illustrate to Utah and to the world? Are you courageous enough to invest in saving this cultural, historical, and iconic building, or do you deem Marisa Bravenel Hall to be replaceable, unworthy of financial investment, willing to erase?
Time.
Please share the rest of your comment with us by email or by calling.
Next will be Frank McIntyre, followed by Richard Walsh, and then Dan Hayes. Frank is here in person.
Before Frank
Frank
starts,
McIntyre, I'm an artist.
I'm sorry, one second. Before you start, I wanted to mention we are going to do a quick bathroom break at 8:45. So wherever we're at 8:45, we're going to take a quick bathroom break after that comment. Sorry, Frank. Great. Go ahead.
Okay, Frank McIntyre, I'm an artist and the former director of the Utah Arts Council. I had the privilege a few years ago of helping curate the 90th anniversary exhibit of UMOCA, which used to be the Salt Lake Art Center. And doing that, I was able to go through a lot of the historical records and be able to see the great sacrifices that were made during the Depression years to construct that building that's up by the University of Utah, known as the Art Barn. And then take about 50 years later, another transformative act happened with the Biennial Cultural Center. And within that center was, again, the UMOCA building. So as an organization, it's been able to move and develop over those years. And we're now at a crossroad, another 50-year leap, to where we're now looking at what will happen with the future of the visual arts and music in our community. And I would recommend that we look at that transformative ability of the arts and its impact on our citizenry. And to do so, I support the financial bill and hope that the discussions that talk about destruction or creation will go forward and look at the transformative aspect of the arts in that discussion. So thank you.
Next will be Richard Walsh, followed by Dan Hayes, and then Samuel Adams. Richard is here in person.
Good evening. I'm Richard Walshy. I am the chairman, the president of the UMOCA board, and I'm here to express the board's thanks for the opportunity to have this discussion, but also to say that we are supportive of looking into the zone and seeing what it might do to revitalize what's happened to UMOCA. Now, UMOCA is probably the premier contemporary art museum in the state. In fact, we may be the only one. Not only do we do contemporary art here, we also have trucks that go out into the rest of the state of Utah to allow discourse and art that otherwise isn't available to a lot of people. So we, as just pointed out, have been here since 1931 in Salt Lake City. This is our home. We're delighted that the county's been so supportive of us as a landlord, because their support has allowed us to meet our objectives and fulfill our mission. So, as was just pointed out, we had already looked at our master plan and said this building needs to be revitalized. It needs to be revisioned. In fact, we've hired architects and they have these grandiose visions that we would all like to have, but as our organization unable to do independently and by ourselves. So we're supportive of the whole process of seeing how we might fit with the Bravenel Hall and maintain a strong arts culture within the revitalization zone. So our commitment as a board is to work with the mayors, the city councils, the county council, and Smith Entertainment Group to do the very best we can to meet everybody's objectives about making this a successful project.
Taylor, next comment.
Will be Dan Hayes, followed by Samuel Adams, and then Karen Plattis. Dan is here in person.
Good evening. My name is Dan Hayes. I'm the general manager for the Salt Palace Convention Center. Thank you to the council for tonight's opportunity. I want to express my sincere support for the opportunity of the Sports, Entertainment, Culture, and Convention District presented by the Smith Entertainment Group and structurally provided for by the Utah State Legislature. While the speed of the process has been identified as one concern, the positive impacts to our shared and unique interests are worthwhile, and the concern can be mitigated. A second concern is the characterization of the Salt Palace as a wall. I get it. However, only describing the Salt Palace as a wall and not balancing that statement with the benefits and the purpose of the Salt Palace is risky. The Salt Palace, if the Salt Palace is misunderstood, its space and capacity could be reduced or eliminated in this process. The benefits of the Salt Palace to the community are many and include 1 million in annual visits each year and the money that those folks bring. The Salt Palace's activity also encourages private hospitality development. The Salt Palace is well-sized and even could be larger. The venue can be reorganized to better fit in our community, and yet its square footage is important. Since 2006, the first year of operations at its current size, square footage consumption has increased threefold, and the annual direct delegate spend has grown by over 300%. The Salt Palace is a place that creates space for people to convene, not be divided, to come together, to share ideas, and to learn. Please remember the tremendous purpose and benefit of the Salt Palace when speaking of it. If we allow the Salt Palace to be misunderstood in our rush to achieve a fantastic idea, it could come at the expense of future generations and save the Japanese garden.
Next will be Samuel Adams, followed by Karen Plattis, and then Christopher Stephenson. Samuel is here in person.
Hi, my name is Samuel Adams. I live in District 3. The real Sam Adams might raise concerns about the tax proposals, but I trust that you'll consider this very carefully. I believe we need to have a bigger conversation about justice and access in the revitalization zone. I see the opportunity before us like this. Will the Salt Lake City we are building be a case study for inclusive growth or one in gentrification? And will the historically marginalized bear not only the financial, but also the social costs? This is an exciting and tempting proposal, but we must plan ahead in order to truly tear down walls without building new ones. Sales taxes are widely considered to be a regressive tax paid disproportionately by those of low income. The revitalization zone is additionally expected to make the downtown and surrounding areas more desirable places to live and do business. This creates pricing pressure to drive current low-income residents and businesses out of the affected markets. And that's broader than just downtown, because the economic impact cuts both ways. Unmitigated, the result is effectively that low-income individuals may end up funding their own displacement, an economic barrier in the heart of our city. Regardless of funding sources, I urge you to mitigate this displacement risk by leaning into the city's focus on affordable housing and the council's desire not to create new barriers. You can do this by specifically requiring the creation of substantial affordable housing stock through this project. And for a policy perspective, I refer you again to the Crossroads Urban Center's statement on this. I urge you also to establish a long-term home for very small businesses in the district and its environs. It's my hope that 30 years from now, Salt Lake City may be considered a case study for successful, inclusive growth, a place that truly includes everyone. Thank you.
Next will be Karen Plattis, followed by Nathan Carlin, and then Patricia Kingston. Karen, you may now unmute.
As I was thinking of the many wonderful experiences I've had at Abravanel Hall, from Anthony Bourdain to Joe Bonamassa, the Utah Symphony, of course, Yo-Yo Ma, speakers from Wasatch Speakers Bureau, and so many more inspiring and moving events. The architecture is marvel and the acoustics are amazing. I remember sitting at a performance where Frank Layton, a longtime icon in Utah and a coach for the Utah Jazz for 8 years, was sitting behind me. He has a distinctive voice, and he was telling wonderful stories during the intermission. One of the things that I loved about him is he's obviously a huge sports fan, and he's also a huge fan of the arts and music. I couldn't speak for him, but I would hope he would be a strong supporter of saving and preserving Abravanel Hall. He reflects the importance of balancing a love of the arts as well as sports and embodies the notion that you can love both. I hope the people who make the decision about redesigning our city and funding or not funding that with taxpayer dollars remember they serve a diverse population. This place, Salt Lake City, is home to so many people, many who cannot afford to attend these events, many who are unhoused or suffer from mental health issues. Please honor and treasure all of them as you make your decision about downtown and how we want our city to serve our citizens. Please don't be blinded by the glitz and glamour that sometimes takes the focus away from our core values of loving our neighbors, honoring our past, and continuing to welcome the world to our fair city. And please don't darken the streets with too many skyscrapers where only the rich can afford to live. Thank you.
Next will be Nathan Carlin, followed by Patricia Kingston, and then Lisa Imamura. Nathan, you may now unmute.
Taylor, I don't think that commenter's here. Was it Christopher or Nathan that was next? Nathan?
Nathan Carlin. We will move on to Patricia Kingston, followed by Lisa Imamura, and then Evelyn Brown. Patricia is here in person.
Patricia Kingston. I'm a resident of Salt Lake City, and I was born and raised here. My dad, Ray Kingston, was the K in FFKR. In his first year of schooling at the University of Utah, the dean of the architecture college said, "Ray, if you want to be a good architect, get season tickets to the symphony," which we all laughed about. But what he talked about was how an architect is a lot like a conductor. So my dad, a farm boy from Ogden, went down to Temple Square and got himself season tickets. Fast forward several years, when he and his partners had the honor of designing then Symphony Hall, now Maurice Abravanel Hall, he chose to orient the building, some might call it a wall, but it's actually a building, toward Temple Square to really honor the symphony's roots. To move it would be to negate the wisdom of the LDS Church who donated the land. The narrative is all focused on the cost to renovate the hall. But what would the cost be to rebuild it? And could you ever replicate perfection? Thank you.
Next will be Lisa Imamura, followed by Evelyn Brown, and then Caitlin Eskelson. Lisa is here in person.
Mayor Mendenhall, council members. My name is Lisa Ikigami Imamura. I live in District 1 of Salt Lake City. I'm here today as one of the board members representing the Salt Lake Buddhist Temple, past, present, and future. Okage samade, I am what I am because of you. This is the vision statement that we came up with for Japantown in the street design. We want a place, quote, a place of remembrance and respect, a place that thrives over time, and a place of inclusion, unquote, from the RDA website for this project. We acknowledge that the Capital City Revitalization Zone is going to happen, and we want to be a part of it. The Japanese American community, the Salt Lake Buddhist Temple, Japanese Church of Christ, the multi-ethnic high-rise, and the Asian Association will be impacted by this project and will hopefully benefit from it as well. As neighbors and community members of this revitalization zone, we know that it is in our best interest to be involved in all phases of this project. We ask that Salt Lake City, Salt Lake County, and SEG keep this in mind and make sure that there are a few seats at the table for all of us, especially because it seems to be moving very fast. Remaining positive, we are excited for the coming changes and look forward to working with you.
Next will be Everin Brown, followed by Caitlin Eskelson, and then Garrett Parker.
All right, after Everin, we'll take a quick bathroom break and then resume.
Everin, you may now unmute.
Hello, can you hear me?
Yes, we can hear you.
Great. Hey, I was just a little concerned. Smith Entertainment Group keeps showing us a single photo of the reimagined arena. And what I'd really like to see from them is a map to see the actual footprint. I'm trying to get a handle on the footprint of the arena and that huge public space. And it, I think, would be super helpful if we could see more than just that single photo. And I know they probably have more plans, but I think, you know, we need to have more information and more chances for input. And we can't base it on just this photo of one angle of it. And the other thing that I think is most important is that we've got to make room for small business people in downtown Salt Lake. I am a small business person. I have a small building in downtown and have been there since 1986. And it's just important that we make room for the small businessman because that's what adds a lot of flavor and diversity to downtown Salt Lake City. So those are my comments on, you know, again, I think before the final decision's made, the public should learn a lot more rather than to just put this out so quick. Thank you.
Thank you. Okay, council members, as quickly as we can, because we have a lot more commenters, but we will be in a short break so that we can focus on all your comments. Are we live again? Test, test. Hello? Okay, I don't use the gavel often, so that was kind of fun. But we will continue with public commenters. Do we have council members? We have a quorum at least. Rest of the council members hurry and come back. But let's continue with public comment.
Good evening. My name is Caitlin Eskelson. I am president and CEO of Visit Salt Lake. And our mission as an organization is to improve the area economy by attracting and providing support to conventions, sport events, leisure travelers, and visitors. We truly believe at the core of everything that we do is that tourism is the front door to economic development. I would like to express my full support for the Sports, Entertainment, Culture, and Convention District. I believe this is truly a once-in-a-lifetime or once-in-a-generation opportunity to reimagine downtown and the Convention District. I also want to just be sure, like Dan said, that we don't lose sight of the value of what happens inside the walls of the Convention Center itself. It is truly where incubation happens, where we invite people from all over the world, and it's really a place where different cultures can come together. So quickly, why it matters. Across Salt Lake County, tourism supports over 44,000 jobs. Our industry generates over $5 billion annually in direct visitor spend, translating to $10.6 million in sales tax directly back to Salt Lake City. On average, each convention delegate spends $950 while in our community, supporting our hotels, bars, restaurants, venues, and small businesses. We like to think of visitors as grandkids. They come, they spend their money, and they go home. We do not have to house them or provide long-term services. I think we can all agree that we saw what the loss of conventions did during COVID-19 just 4 years ago, and I want to make sure that we are protecting into the future. During COVID, our economy and workforce from convention business went from basically thriving at about $500 million or $5 million per week down to 400,000. So many bars and restaurants closed, and we need to make sure that we create this vibrancy and we don't displace the conventions as we're thinking about building back better. So with that, everything going on in this world, it's just really fun to have this conversation. Thank you for opening the door.
Next will be Garrett Parker, followed by Julie Easton Gregerson, and then Sabrina Nelson. Garrett is here in person.
Can you hear me? Okay, that's better. Hello and good evening. My name is Garrett Parker, and I'm the hotel general manager I'm a hotel general manager in downtown Salt Lake City Center. I am also serving as board chair for Visit Salt Lake. We are excited to support the creation of the Sports, Entertainment, Culture, and Convention District. I've been in the hotel and hospitality industry for almost 20 years now, across several different states and across the country, including Dallas, Austin, Baltimore, DC, and most recently, San Francisco. In each of these markets, meetings and conventions have been essential to the success of the hotel, retail, restaurant, and hospitality industries. And Salt Lake City is no exception to that. I have seen firsthand what the loss of convention business can do to a convention district. In 2017 and 2018, San Francisco's Convention Center, the Moscone Center, began a massive renovation and expansion project. During the renovation, a large portion of the convention center was closed for 9 months. I saw firsthand the impact to my team members and to the community. Reduced hours, lost business, a significant impact. I say all of this not to deter, but to keep in mind as these important decisions are being made. Communication and phasing will be key as this progresses. As a hospitality leader, leading more than 200 team members, I want them to remain employed, contributing to the hospitality industry and our city as a whole. Again, we are very excited and supportive of the funding and creation of the district, this new district, and are excited to see what the future holds. Thank you.
Next will be Julie Easton Gregerson, followed by Sabrina Nelson, and then Damon Taylor. Julie is here in person.
Hi, I'm Julie Easton Gregerson, and I live in Sugar House, and I've been a private citizen of Salt Lake for over 40 years. And as a private citizen, I am opposed to this added sales tax for a project that is not fully realized for the citizens. I have not seen more than the broad picture. I listened to the presentation, and by damn, it sounded good. And you know what my dad taught me? That if it sounds too good to be true, it's probably not true.
Next will be Sabrina Nelson, followed by Damon Taylor, and then Annette Jarvis. Sabrina's here in person.
I just wanted to say that Abravanel Hall is one of the greatest acoustic halls in America. It is unique in that it was built first hiring an acoustician before an architect was brought in to work around that. It is a gem that cannot be replaced. And nobody, this is a dying art form, acoustics, and nobody who has been raised in the digital age has any hope of understanding acoustics the way it was understood when this building was built. This is beyond a tragedy because all of the corners that will be cut in this project would be corners cut on the Symphony Hall, and they will try to fix their bad acoustics with electronics, which of course would ruin the entire thing. I'd like to just demonstrate right now the importance of acoustics in classical music. Oh mio bambino caro, mi piace bello, bello, andare in Porta Rossa a comperar l'anello. Sì, sì, ci voglio andare, e se l'ammas se indarno, andrei sul ponte vecchio, ma per buttarmi in arno. Time out. Thank you.
Next will be Damon Taylor, followed by Annette Jarvis.
I realize that's a very odd time to call the rules of decorum, but remember, no clapping.
Okay. We'll hear from Damon Taylor, followed by Annette Jarvis, and then Sheldon Mark. Damon's here in person.
Is there anyone that's Damon Taylor?
I believe they had the last name wrong. It's Talbot. So good evening, Council. It's good to be before you again. And I am Damon Talbot, and I'm a resident of District 5. We're in a very exciting time for our city with this opportunity for our city to really focus on the culture, the sports, arts, our history, heritage with Japantown. It gives us a lot of opportunities, but we need to be very thoughtful going forward. The city is footing the bill. It's our residents. Yes, some that visit here will be paying taxes too because it's a sales tax, but our residents are spending their money in our city every day. So we need to be thoughtful to make sure that whatever comes out of this plan is going to benefit those that live here. And that's going to benefit those that are paying for this proposal to go forward. I do want to make a comment that, this is not just about this project. This is really a chance for Salt Lake to build a catalyst that really helps us grow to the next level. It could be a spearhead for things like the Rio Grande plan that will reconnect our city's east-west divide. It could really spur some new thoughts for the Ballpark Next envisioning process that's ongoing right now. So I think the council, though we are under a strict timeline, needs to make sure that our community is part of that discussion, that we're looking forward and really seeing how this is an opportunity. We do need to keep Abravanel Hall. We do need to think about the history and the culture, but we need to also seize the opportunity while the door is open. Thank you.
Next will be Annette Jarvis, followed by Sheldon Marmoto, and then Tom Merrill. Annette is here in person.
My name is Annette Jarvis. I'm a resident of Salt Lake City, and I'm here to speak on behalf of UMOCA. I have the unique opportunity of serving on the board of UMOCA and also on the board of the Symphony. And I am, as an attorney, I spend an enormous amount of time giving pro bono services to both the museum and to the Symphony because I feel passionately about the importance of arts in our community. These organizations add a lot to our community. Not only are they important to the citizens of our community, but to our visitors who come and know that this city is a first-class city when it comes to the arts. That's important for these visitors. It's also important that these two organizations stay together, that we have an arts group as this is being reimagined, because this arts, these two art forums work together, and they present a unique opportunity in bringing families for Art Saturdays in the museum, for family concerts in the Symphony, and bringing visitors for the art exhibits and also for the Symphony concerts. And that's important to maintain and keep away from the other parts of the development that will be more entertainment focused. And I also personally want to thank Carolyn Abravanel, who has made such an impassioned defense of Abravanel Hall and who has meant so much to our community, to the Symphony, and to the arts. And I hope that as you reimagine this, the city will work at investing in and preserving this arts part of this redevelopment. Thank you.
Next will be Sheldon Marmoto, followed by Tom Merrill, and then Monica Hilding. Sheldon is here in person.
Hello. When I was young, in the early 80s, my parents took me to San Francisco to visit family. And while we were there, we visited their Japantown, world famous. And I was thrilled to see businesses, shops, all sorts of stores that exemplified my heritage. So, I asked my parents, I asked my father, do we have something like that? Do we have something like that in Utah? And my father said no. Now, if you knew my father, that sort of one-word answer was a little bit uncharacteristic. But I was young, and so I just ran off to the next shop. Didn't even know that Salt Lake City had a Japantown until I was much older. My dad came to Utah in 1942. He had frequent cause to come to Salt Lake City, had frequent cause to come to Japantown. I have no doubt that he was here. And never once in my memory did he ever tell me that Salt Lake City had a Japantown. Japanese Americans of the generation operated on a philosophy called gaman, which is endurance. And they tended not to speak about things that were painful to them. And so I know that this was painful for my father, to know that it no longer existed. Now we're talking about Abravanel Hall and UMOCA and the Salt Palace, and all of these are worthy things to consider. But I'd like to remind the council that all of this was once Japantown. It's not coming back. But before any more is lost, I urge this council to fund the Japantown Street Revitalization Project so that we don't lose what we have left. Thank you.
Next will be Tom Merrill, followed by Monica Hilding, and then David Scher. Tom is here in person.
All right. Good evening, City Council members and staff, Mayor. My name is Tom Merrill, and I serve as the chair for the Downtown Community Council. We appreciate the opportunity to share input on the entertainment district. One of the most significant changes in the downtown area since the 1995 completion of the Salt Palace is the substantial growth of the residential community downtown. We, the Community Council of Downtown, do our best to represent the residential voice in public policy discussions. We want to emphasize the goal of building a livable city in decisions regarding the entertainment district. We have several major comments that we hope will inform your deliberations today and over the next few months. And while we are disappointed that the catalyzing legislation came together with practically no public input, it is with the assumption that a sales tax is a foregone conclusion that we make the following comments with one overarching sentiment. Public dollars should be spent to achieve direct public benefit. Number one, Salt Lake City needs to have a contingency plan in the event private funding is ever jeopardized. Two, the entertainment district should be a catalyst for enhanced public transit for workers, residents, and visitors. We understand that there's obviously state purview on that. Number three, the opportunity to restore Japantown merits substantial public financial support. Four, residential housing for workers and other groups should be a key component of this project. Five, a public recreational facility should accompany $1 billion investment in professional sports. Six, a reconfiguration of the Delta Center should be conducive to an 18-hour district. Seven, development decisions regarding Abravanel Hall should not be based solely on financial considerations. We have a longer version that we'll submit. Thank you.
Next will be Monica Hilding, followed by David Shear, and then Maya. Monica, you may now unmute.
Can you hear me?
Yes, we can hear you.
Okay. Thank you for encouraging public comment on the revitalization project. I'm concerned that the majority of Salt Lake City residents will realize few benefits from this, as more of out-of-town visitors drive up the cost of housing, restaurants, and entertainment. I would like to see more consideration given to the Rio Grande project, as other people have mentioned, of putting underground numerous railroad tracks that now separate the east and west of this city. The zoning changes concern me, and the loss of Abravanel Hall, and I share the concerns that Crossroads Urban Center made of affordable housing for so many of the people who work in the downtown area, cleaning our hotels and serving in our restaurants. So I would like to see more consideration given to affordable housing and some of the other things that have been mentioned by other people who have spoken, as well as preserving what little is left of Japantown. Thank you very much.
Next will be David Shear, followed by Maya, and then James Allen. David is here in person.
Good evening. I can't really judge the merits of this proposal since I know very little about it, as does most of the public, I think. You've heard, however, that Abravanel Hall is not just a symphony hall. It's recognized for the excellence of its building design, its qualities as a performance space for symphonies because it was designed specifically for that purpose. But it's also a great piece of urban design with the plaza that's in front of it. How did it happen? As an architect, I think I can speak to that. Buildings like this don't happen very often. It's an exceptional conjunction, in this case, of Marisa Abravanel, who provided the vision, and I would say the moral authority to see that the vision was carried out. Exceptional architects and an exceptional acoustician. This is not something you order out of a catalog. This will not happen again. I think I can say that with confidence. If this building is torn down, whatever replaces it will be inferior. It also reminds me of the last time I can remember that the city was forced by the state into making a hasty development decision. The city basically was forced by the state to enter into developer agreements with two developers out in the inland port and essentially guaranteed that we would get an inland port no matter what the state did. Maybe some of you are as tired as I am of having the state do our urban design for us. Mr. Wharton has correctly asserted that the decision about this project does not lie with you, but I would say this does not absolve you as our city representatives of responsibility for this decision. I know the pain that the state can bring if it doesn't like the decisions that the city government makes. I know you all are in a terrible bind, and I don't envy you that position, but here you are. And I would ask you to stand up for the residents of...
Thank you. Please send us the rest of your comment, David.
Next is Maya, followed by James Allen, and then Mike Nelson. Maya is here in person.
Maya, are you here? Taylor, I think we can go to the next comment. Maya, if you're here, check with staff so that we can circle back to you.
Next will be James Allen, followed by Mike Nelson, and then JC Hamilton. James is here in person.
Hello, thanks for hearing me today. I'd like to start off with something that I kind of found interesting that is probably very common knowledge to you, but maybe not to the general public, and that's that the City Council is the separate but equal branch of government, like in opposition to the mayor. I know that because I understand the need to essentially convey a united front with everyone when you're doing things, but this decision has been placed on your shoulders, and it is a very difficult decision for sure. The financials of this decision, I think you're all well aware of the stakes, and what I'd like to speak out to is I'm very concerned about the tone and discussion like surrounding this project. Specifically things like how the majority of the City Council, when talking about this, talks as if it is a matter of fact. Same with many of the commenters. When I looked at the law, and it appears that you do have the ability to say no. Then I'd also like to point out that this is not just a stadium, but it would appear that the Smith Entertainment Group is essentially doing the bare minimum to secure the votes of the individual members of the City Council and expanding it in that front, such as the East-West Divide, which in my opinion is not 200 West, but the train, moving it 1 block west to 300 West. I don't necessarily know if that would make a material difference. And this deal echoes things that's materially different, but does echo the Chicago parking meter deal. I don't know if you're aware, 75-year lease on all the parking meters in Chicago with Goldman Sachs, and it was a horrendous deal that was jammed through the City Council by pressure from the mayor. And I'd like to say it's like this whole deal is, so far, I wonder how long has the Smith Entertainment Group known about this? The legislative session was in January. All the material that we received has been very vague. The briefing essentially just seemed like they just found talking points of good urban design. Things like that $3.5 billion that they're using, that include the $1.2 billion that they paid for the Coyotes, including the around $500 million that they seem to overpay over the market value, even though I guess they're not a charity. And if they had had things like a Bravenel Hall in the original proposal that the Salt Lake Tribune got, like how many people wouldn't be commenting today? There's a lot of oversights that I think doesn't seem like they're taking this seriously.
Next will be Mike Nelson, followed by JC Hamilton, and then Floyd Morey. Mike is here in person.
Thank you for hearing me. My name is Mike Nielsen. I'm in support of Ordinance G20. I'm a donor to the arts, and specifically to Utah Museum of Contemporary Art. I believe in the power of art of our time, and I want my family to experience world-class exhibitions in venues that are safe and welcoming. As a board member and active contributor in the UMOCA's Master Planning Committee, I've applied my professional engineering background to understanding the necessary infrastructure upgrades to the mechanical and electrical systems to execute UMOCA's vision to increase organizational visibility The current configuration of UMOCA is hidden and forgotten and is served by crumbling systems infrastructure. Challenges include things like fire sprinklers, building controls, and heat for the winter. In addition to these basics, we plan to meet the museum facility standards that allow us to bring world-class exhibitions and events to Utah. The unprecedented construction cost escalation has precluded our ability to address issues outside the walls of our facility. I therefore favor a new building co-located with the symphony in our home in this new district. Thanks to the county, we have enjoyed our home for 50 years. While I'm nervous to break down UMOCA walls, I'm excited for a new vision and welcome SEG to the neighborhood. I echo Councilor Mano's earlier comments that a rushed process is likely to leave out important details and possibly relegate the Symphony Hall and UMOCA to a small corner, left to compete with the Times Square LED screen. But I'm willing to take Mike Mon at his word that he and SEG will remain at the table and foster the momentum of our strategic plan in this new district. We've worked tirelessly to make our offerings accessible to our younger crowd, and I hope this crowd will be a consistent topic in reimagining and activating this new district. Thank you.
Next will be JC Hamilton, followed by Floyd Morey, and then Brooke Smith. JC is here in person.
Hey, City Council. Thanks for having us. Mayor, thanks for being here. So I am a lifelong Utahn. I live in Council 4, just a block and a half south of the Delta Center. And I want to speak in behalf of this. I think that this is a great opportunity for all the parties involved. I think you're doing a good job of involving, SEG, but also Japantown, UMOCA, and it sounds like there's a good coalition here. So I think the benefits are pretty obvious. I'm speaking to the public here, like the concept that we're just spending $1 billion to give like a toy to Ryan Smith is absurd, okay? So the county owns the land, like the convention center, the city owns the land in the Delta Center, so we as a public should look at this as an investment in our city, in our county, in our state. So also the sales tax, not a bad move because a lot of people come into the city and spend money, and so it does proliferate that with our neighboring communities that will also benefit, like West Valley and other residents. Now, with that being said, I do think it's a good idea, but we got to do it right. This is a really important opportunity, so let's make sure that we do it right. Some of the things I want to bring to the council and to the mayor to consider, first and foremost is, to the convention center guy, I love the convention center. It's great for us. It also is a wall, so let's do something about it. I think we should emphasize opening up 100 South just as much as we do bringing 200 West to grading. I'd love all those blocks to be there. Maybe add some verticality to the southern block of the convention center. That way we can keep square footage, but also have a good open pedestrian area. I also think because it's a sales tax, it is flat, so we have to consider our lower income community and make sure that any residential has good protections for under AMI. I also would like to see set-asides for the homeless complications that we have. We have to serve them, but we also have to give long-term solutions. Let's put money there. But lastly, I think this is something that we just need to be proud of. So let's do our best. We have faith in you. Please hold all party holders to the best benefits for the city, and good job. Good luck.
Next will be Floyd Morey, followed by Brooke Smith, and then Alex Yard. Floyd is here in person.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman and members of the council. My name is Floyd Morey, and I was actually born and raised here in Utah County, or Salt Lake County, sorry. And during the time of my life, I also spent some time in California, where I served as a mayor of a very vibrant area of California. And in that growth, there was a lot of balance in that growth. It wasn't just industry, it just wasn't housing, it was maintaining the character and culture of that area. As we look at this new development, we have an opportunity to do just that. That the Salt Palace development in the past has eliminated a very important cultural value to this city. But as I've talked to some of the members of the council, the mayor, and also hearing from the Smith Group tonight, that Japantown is important, and that some enhancement of that area will be very important to revitalization of that whole process. So I urge the council to move along that path, that let's not eliminate a valuable cultural heritage that we have. Let's keep it, let's enhance it, and make the value of that element be beneficial to the city. So thank you for your consideration.
Next will be Brooke Smith, followed by Alex Hirai, and then Clarissa Park. Brooke, you may now unmute.
Thank you. Can you hear me?
Brooke, are you here? Oh, Brooke's online.
We will troubleshoot with Brooke and move on to Alex Hirai, followed by Clarissa Park, and then Matthew Gibbons. Alex is here in person.
My name's Alex Hirai, and I was born and raised in Salt Lake County and currently reside there as well. And so thank you for giving me the opportunity to speak. I want to talk today about the rushed nature of the revitalization project and the public funds being used for it. Thus far, this whole process has gone faster than anyone could have imagined when Ryan Smith bought the Coyotes. In less than 2 months since the official announcement by the NHL on April 18th, the public is being asked to approve a massive amount of funds to be appropriated to an already highly profitable entity. This is an extraordinarily short timeline to ask for public funds for an operation as large as they have proposed. When government and large corporations move quickly, it is often the public that end up bearing the burden of the decisions they make. If SEG and Ryan Smith truly want to work with the community and utilize public funds, they must work in good faith and understand the effect the revitalization project will have on the cultural identity of the city. Salt Lake City has the opportunity to buck that trend and ensure this project will be something that will preserve the cultural history of the downtown area and kind of revitalize an ethnic enclave that used to be a very vibrant part of the city. And so thank you for your time.
Next will be Clarissa Park, followed by Matthew Gibbons, and then John Little. Clarissa's here in person.
Hello, council members and mayor. My name is Clarissa Park, and I represent the petition to revitalize Japantown. Our online version shows 934 signatures, but what doesn't show is the 2,812 signatures that we've gathered from our in-person community events around the valley. Our total signatures today are 3,746 in support of our Japanese American community. This number may pale in comparison to a Bravenel Hall's petition, but that shows you how much our community has to work to have our voices heard, and we are ready to do the work. I also wanted to come up and read the petition to get it on record, so here it is. To the Revitalization Zone Committee, Smith Entertainment Group, Salt Lake County, and Salt Lake City Council regarding SB 272, the Capital City Revitalization Zone. This petition is to raise awareness of the Japanese American community's desire to have a role in the planning and funding of SB 272. We have been a part of our capital city's cultural fabric nearly as long as the LDS pioneers, and we appeal to you, our community leaders, to be included in the project area designed into SB 272, and a portion of the accumulated funds to be specifically set aside for our community to develop a modern, vibrant city center for businesses, restaurants, and community events to once again thrive and showcase our presence in Salt Lake City. Demolition of Salt Lake City's Japantown in 1965 to build the Salt Palace Convention Center left a hole in the heart of our community. Prior to demolition, it was an energetic, bustling cultural center which nearly 8,000 residents called home. It was a safe haven for families after experiencing the injustices of the World War II internment camps. For almost 60 years, there has been no non-religious place to gather and commune. Until now, we need your support to restore a piece of what once was, to resurrect a modern Japantown street which preserves and celebrates our Japanese American experience as an established part of Utah's history. Together, may we showcase our...
Send us the rest, please.
Next will be Matthew Gibbons, followed by John Little, and then Kate Little. Matthew's here in person.
Hello, my name is Matt Givens. I'm an aeronautical engineer.
that lives in Salt Lake County. I'm generally in favor of the proposed entertainment district, sales tax, upzoning, and possible changes to the Salt Palace, provided that Smith Entertainment Group is and remains a forthright partner with the city. I say this with the expectation that all of the stakeholders, including the Symphony, Umoka, and Japantown, are treated fairly and given priority in the redevelopment plans. The city should use this opportunity to, I think, to ask for some for sale dense housing like condos as part of the Smith Group's investments here, because they're not being built right now. The city should also use this opportunity perhaps to ask for the team to be called Salt Lake instead of just Utah, because Salt Lakers are paying the tax. I also want to point out how quickly the state legislature can tip the scales in favor of big changes in the city. 2 stadium deals, possibly almost $2 billion local dollars in a month. And while I won't say there's no public benefit to the city and its residents from these deals, has to be said that both of these were targeted at helping very specific business entities and interests. One of the benefits of this present bill is the possibility of removing a barrier downtown by presumably reconfiguring the Salt Palace. While this is certainly a barrier, it's not the barrier that we all normally talk about, the one between the east and west sides of the city. With these observations in mind, with $1 trillion of federal infrastructure money still unspent, I think the City Council and Mayor should more formally consider the truly transformational investment that would be the Rio Grande Plan, and possibly as part of this present downtown revitalization scheme, and be more aggressive in lobbying the legislature and the federal government for help in getting it done. These big investments in sports and the Olympics and the increase in people passing through downtown, we need to invest in public transit, deconflict the crossing.
Next will be John Little, followed by Kate Little, and then Libby Haslam. John is here in person.
Hello, I'm John Little from the Avenues in Salt Lake City. I believe that the state has imposed a pretty unfair tax without voter approval. I know we mentioned the deadlines is something we don't have a lot of control over here, but I think the City Council needs to represent citizens of Salt Lake City by showing some teeth and making sure we get the most out of this deal. Currently, this is a sweetheart deal for the Smith Entertainment Group, where they get the majority of this 0.5% sales tax. That can be around hundreds of dollars for median wage earners, and that's simply unfair. I think some of the things that we can do include requiring taxpayer money to go to organizations until the Smith Entertainment Group can commit both sports teams, the Jazz and the hockey team, to remain in Salt Lake, not just a single one of them. Balancing the speed requirements of the hockey league, the NHL, with a slowness and voter approval for other elements of the designs. I think public transit funding is something we can consider as well in this deal. But I'd like to note that the Smith Entertainment Group gets taxpayer money, use of land, development rights, and design authority over so many of these features, and we need to start treating them like a stakeholder, not like a customer. I think if we treat them like a stakeholder and bring Mocha, Abravanel Hall, Japantown, bring squatters, bring all sorts of residents to allow voter approval, industry approval from all sorts of Salt Lake citizens and organizations. Thank you.
Next will be Kate Little, followed by Libby Haslam, and then Trey Imamura. Kate is here in person.
Good evening, Council, and thank you for hearing everybody tonight. I thank you also for pursuing development of our downtown. I want to say that I am for more housing, I'm for more business, I'm for more walkability, I am for more activity downtown. That being said, I feel this is progressing too quickly with a vision from pretty much a single person And I feel that we need to rely on traditional, slower, organic growth in our planning and with a wider participation from the community. There has been a lot of talk of breaking down walls and increasing east-west connectivity in the creation of this new district. But right now there are problems with understanding exactly what this plan entails. There's too little information available in an extremely compressed timeline. This is concerning to me because we're about to give away a lot of tax dollars and we really don't know what we're getting in return for it. So I think that urban planning should be a little more slow and a little more considered. And I think if SEG is serious about what they want to do, they will participate in a slower development project. I would also like to speak to Abravanel Hall. You do have a say in that because you have a certain say in where the monies from the tax go to, and also you have a say in the outline of the plan. You could just exclude the Abravanel Hall piece of land from this if you chose, but.
Time.
Thank you.
Next will be Libby Haslam, followed by Trey Imamura, and then Natalie Brooks. Libby's here in person.
Thank you for staying so late. It's very warm in here, and thank you for paying attention to what we have to say, and thank you, Smith Group, for staying this whole time, too. I'm an architect in Salt Lake City, and although I serve on the Utah American Institute of Architects board, my statements today are my own personal opinion. I think this is a really exciting time for Salt Lake City. This proposal and consequent growth will be transformational for all of us. As a resident, as an architect, and as a person who cares deeply about history, it seems to be imperative that we do save Abravanel Hall. This is an iconic and beloved building in Salt Lake City. We rely on our elected officials to preserve our history, celebrate our culture, protect our history, and protect our significant buildings. And as the first speaker noted, that although the county owns the structure, it is in fact a landmark in Salt Lake City and for the state of Utah. I urge you to consider that Abravanel Hall is a worthy cultural building that should be folded into this development as it stands. I trust that the city raised tax funds for this endeavor might be directed not only to the preservation of this iconic building, but hopefully are also used to create a new home for UMOCA, which is a really important cultural institution that should not be erased from our downtown Salt Lake City. Thank you.
Next will be Trey Imamura, followed by Natalie Brooks, and then Marissa Eng. Trey is here in person.
I want to mention that the Salt Palace is in fact a wall that cut my community in half due to the use of eminent domain. Let's stop being dismissive of Asian voices and let's amplify them. The Salt Palace will always be there. It's a county facility. Thank you. Next. Thank you, Madam Chair, and the City Council members for providing the space for your support in this process. My name is Trey Imamura, and I grew up attending the Salt Lake Buddhist Temple. I'm also a resident in Chairwoman Petro's district. I'm excited for the creation of a Capital City Revitalization Zone. This project has brought a new energy to our community, and I want to make sure we keep that we want to keep that energy going. That being said, here are my 3 asks when it comes to Japantown and the Revitalization Zone. I ask that you always keep the Japanese concept of okage samade, I am who I am because of you, at the forefront of this zone. This is not solely for the Japanese American community. This must extend to other cultural communities that thrived around the Delta Center, just like the Fremont Native American village that existed before the pioneers came to Utah. Second, I ask that the Japanese American community be informed of all major and minor discussions ahead of the street. I ask for quarterly meetings at minimum with stakeholders in the Japanese American community, City Council, and project management to keep communication channels open and active. Lastly, I ask for more economic empowerment opportunities in this project with the focus of avoiding even more gentrification within Salt Lake City. Specifically, opportunities for the Japanese community to, number 1, be a part of the revitalization through possible employment opportunities, and number 2, financial incentives such as community development block grants, historic preservation grants, and low interest loans so the Japanese American community can fund our segment of the revitalization zone to be equally as relevant as the state's new NHL team. Thank you.
Next will be Natalie Brooks, followed by Marissa Eng, and then Starks. Natalie, you may now unmute.
Can you hear me?
Yes, we can hear you.
Okay. I want to acknowledge the sheer number of articulate and insightful community comments tonight. Thank you, District 5 Councilman Darren Mono, for acknowledging 2 weeks ago that we shouldn't rush this process and should allow ample opportunity for public comment. I think tonight underscores that. I believe there is a way to have a partnership and collaboration with the Smith Entertainment Group, which stands to make revenue from our strong economy without having to financially subsidize their investment opportunity with the Delta Center. I cannot think of a more beautiful downtown for them to expand their multi-billion-dollar pro sports business, and ultimately SEG needs SLC more than we need them. I think we can achieve shared goals of connecting east and west sides by focusing our tax revenue on our residents and city instead of promising a private company nearly $1 billion. This plan prioritizes parking for cars and helicopters, but ignores traffic implications. We need to focus on moving people, not cars, into the city and between east and west sides. Cars increase traffic and pollution. I think Mr. Smith knows that traffic implications of the SEG plan because he wants a helipad, not a UTA pass. Cars and private helicopters hurt our air quality and our poor urban planning and do not align with Salt Lake City's sustainability goals. We can put our tax revenue towards more public transit lines, which will help bring more people to the downtown. I'm concerned about Mayor Mendenhall waiving the zoning restrictions on signage, advertising, and height limits. I'm afraid of downtown turning to a commercial and advertising district instead of an arts and cultural district. 2 weeks ago, the SEG representative talked about how much their revenue will come through advertising and gave American Express as an example. I'm afraid of this becoming an area of locals avoid because it becomes a billboard and advertising district. Just a few weeks ago, Aaron Mendenhall had a Dark Skies Week, which seems to be lip service if adding an advertising district with LED screens. In summary, we should invest in our residents and city and keep ourselves desirable as a city. Thank you.
Next will be Marissa Eng, followed by Starks, and then Denise Taylor-Sevo. Marissa's here in person.
Good evening, everyone. Thank you for dedicating time to hear from the public on this topic. My name is Marissa Ng, and I grew up going to the Salt Lake Buddhist Temple, and I am very grateful for the work that our leaders in our Japanese community have done to protect what we have left of Japantown. This revitalization effort is an opportunity for the city, county, and SEG to include the Japanese American community as well as the arts community as key stakeholders in downtown's future to break down walls and correct past injustices. While I'm excited about the opportunity this brings to potentially reinvigorate Japantown and bring local businesses, community centers, and cultural exhibits, I too am concerned with the speed at which decisions and planning are being made. As mentioned, we need to ensure that we are thoughtful in how we approach this for our city, community, and the future generations. Our Japanese American community leaders are currently planning and getting community input now via town halls, surveys, and talks with other Japantowns to ensure we account for all concerns and ideas from tall buildings to parking lots to Japanese business ideas and multi-use community centers. We ask that you continue to include us in key conversations and planning at each step of the way and continue to provide transparency in the process. I also ask that you take the time to learn as much as you can about the history of Japantown and from other cities with Japanese communities to ensure that we create a sustainable future for local businesses, residents, and communities. Doing so will ensure we create a world-class experience for those living and visiting Salt Lake. I urge the council to advocate for the inclusion of Japantown in funding for downtown revitalization. This not only honors our past, but also ensures a vibrant and inclusive future for our city. Thank you.
Next will be Starks, followed by Denise Taylor-Sevo, and then Dale Abbott. Starks is here in person.
Starks, if you're here, please find a staff member and we can get you added back to the list, but let's move on to the next commenter for now.
Next will be Denise Taylor Sevo and then Dave Abbott, followed by Troy Justinson. Denise is here in person.
Hello. Thank you for hearing all of these public comments. I actually checked on my form that I didn't want to speak, that I had written comments, and I wish I had my form, but I'll do the best I can. I understand that the City Council doesn't really have control over what happens. Thank you so much. I understand that the City Council doesn't have the control over what happens to at Bravenel Hall, but I think that you can do whatever you can to put pressure on the county to do what's right. I am an owner and a resident of downtown. I've lived in a condo for about 5 years. And many of my friends, we are greatly concerned about the proposals to eliminate the building height restrictions and also the changes in signage. We're very concerned about Las Vegas style signs along West Temple. West Temple. Let's see. And I am concerned about losing the plaza in front of Bravenel Hall. I just envision a Dubai height skyscraper right there in that plaza because of the height restrictions being eliminated. We consider Bravenel Hall a historical treasure that must be preserved, and we urge you to remember the importance of the arts and culture in downtown Salt Lake and not let money and sports interests overwhelm our community. Thank you very much.
Next will be Dale Abbott, followed by Troy Justinson, and then Jim Webster. Dale is here in person.
Dale, are you here? If you are, reach out to a staff member. We can get you batted back to the list, but let's go on to Troy next.
Next will be Troy Justinson, followed by Jim Webster, and then Ksenia Kusiva.
Good evening. I'm Troy Justinson. I'm not going to grace you with my singing talents like this young lady, so y'all are safe. Now, like I stated, my name is Troy Justinson. I represent a very large annual event that comes to Salt Lake City each February, the Western Hunting and Conservation Expo. We've been there for almost nearly 18 years. It is one of the largest conventions held at the Salt Palace. And we are under contract until 2028 there. Our plan is to continue to hold our event there. We hope to event. Our event is a full Salt Palace facility show with nearly 600 exhibiting companies from multiple countries and 68,000 attendees from nearly every state. Our show has experienced 10 to 15% growth each year since its inception in 2007. Our exhibit hall is currently sold out until 2025, and we have a waiting list of over 800 vendors to come exhibit at our show. The Hunting Expo has proven track record of a significant economic impact for Salt Lake City, Salt Lake County, and the state of Utah, not only due to visitors from 48 of the 50 states, but also through city and state tax revenue generated from exhibitor sales transactions conducted during the Hunt Expo. The Hunt Expo has generated well over $100 million for Utah wildlife habitat conservation for the state of Utah in the 18 years of its existence. We are concerned about the reduction in exhibit hall space. The revamping of Salt Lake's downtown convention center district would bring to the Salt Palace. Our show is in actually need of more contiguous exhibit space, not less. Reconfiguring the current contiguous Salt Palace space into adjacent space is problematic for us, as it is probably for some of the other people that have conventions there. Losing any space would be a serious impact to our event. We are currently planning our 2000.
Please email the rest of your comment. Thank you.
Next will be Jim Webster, followed by Ksenia Kusiva, and then Donna Johnson. Jim is here in person.
Webster, you hear from me a lot. I'm a landscape architect, but also an architectural historian. I studied with Leo Barani, and And Cyril Harris, I don't know if you know who they are, but Cyril Harris designed Abravanel Hall with FFKR. He only designed 4 other symphony halls in the country: Kennedy, the Met, Lincoln Center, and the Seattle Symphony. We're an elite company, and we're considering compromising that. It's just hard to believe. Cyril Harris is an institution by himself. He died 13 years ago. I'm in favor of the sales tax if it were spread to the entire county, because the county owns Abravanel Hall, and I think the money should be spent at Abravanel Hall. It's been nearly 50 years since we recognized that Abravanel Hall needed to upgrade to current codes, including fire, ADA, and other things. If we had done it at the time, it would be considerably, probably less than 20% of the $200 million that you're talking about now. So it's just a function of mismanagement that has happened. And I think that's something that needs to be taken into consideration. You also ought to be considering what happened to Detroit, Oakland, and St. Louis when professional sports left those cities and left them abandoned. There's a serious blight problem associated with that. So the city needs to ensure that this doesn't happen. Thank you for your time.
Next will be Ksenia Knisuva, followed by Donna Johnson, and then Zenos Thorensen. Ksenia's here in person. Just kidding. Ksenia's online. Ksenia, you may now unmute.
Hi, can you hear me? Yes, my name is Ksenia, and I am the executive director of the Nomad Alliance. I am here to speak against this Capital City Revitalization Zone. As it stands today, I do believe that it's much too rushed. I do believe there's great concerns, as we've seen with 70 people speaking, for loss of the arts and the Japanese town. And what we need to understand is sales tax is always regressive, and it's always borne disproportionately on the backs of the lower income classes. We already have an overwhelming problem with unsheltered people living outside because we have an affordable housing crisis and an inflation crisis. And I don't understand why we let them eat cake about all of this, why we fund sports at the expense of the arts, and we fund sports at the expense of a population that is suffering. 5.5% increase in sales tax, while we do not fund bathrooms for the population. There's no showers for the population. There's no laundry. And all of the hatred is born on the backs of the population suffering, not on the backs of a government that is failing to address the needs of the people, of the vulnerable. And all I'm seeing is more and more people falling to the streets because we have a very, very bad problem in our economy that is only just now starting to realize, and we're the frog being boiled. We need to fund affordable housing. I stand with Crossroads Urban Center in asking for a percentage of the units that are being built to be for low income, but we have to understand that our average salary in Salt Lake is $48,000. We do not have enough spaces for people to live. Thank you.
Next is Donna Johnson, followed by Zenos Thorensen, and then Anna Richoletta. Donna's here in person.
Good evening, and thank you all so very, very much for your time, especially on this late night. I am Donna Wellman Johnson, and in the course of a rather long life spent in the service of the arts, including several stints as a soloist with the Utah Symphony under Maestro Abravanel, I can tell you there are very, very few things that light up a little kid's eyes like listening to Peter and the Wolf for the first time or hearing a singer singing as though singing right to them. It lights them up like you wouldn't believe. and it's a way up and it's a way out. It's like another child looking at maybe a basketball star or a hockey goalie and saying, hey, maybe I can do that. And if that is a possibility for the for the future residents and the future leaders and the future artistic stars of our city, our state, we would be foolish to raise one of the absolute gems in our crown, Abravanel Hall. Its sheer acoustic world-class excellence, its iconic architecture, its sheer aesthetic brilliance, we cannot rebuild at today's prices, and maybe not at all. Keep it, renovate it, upgrade it, spend the money that needs to be spent, and keep this part of our vibrant cityscape, cultural, artistic, sports, entertainment. We need it all, and there's a way for them to coexist. Thank you so much.
Next will be Zenos Thorensen, and then Anna Archuleta, followed by Roland Yoshinba. Zenos is here in person.
All right, good evening. My name is Zenos Thorson. I'm a Utah Valley resident. Sorry, but I want to voice my support for the Rio Grande plan mentioned by Matthew earlier. I think it can do a lot of good connecting East and West Salt Lake City and really bringing more traffic to the Capital Revitalization Zone. And I feel like there's a lot of good for that. And I'd love if we could set up some meetings with the people around that, with the city and with the SEG too as well. And yeah, I'm excited for more transit. Hopefully that's funded as part of this. And thank you for the work you're doing with Japantown.
Next will be Anna Archuleta, followed by Roland Yoshinaga, and then Rocky Anderson. Anna's here in person.
Taylor, we don't see Anna. Anna, if you're here, please reach out to staff so we can get you added back.
Next will be Roland Yoshinaga, followed by Rocky Anderson, and then Stephanie Burdick. Roland is here in person.
Thank you for the opportunity to speak to you. As mentioned earlier, let me first say that I'm representing the Salt Lake Buddhist Temple as its board, part of its board of directors. And as we mentioned earlier, we are cautiously optimistic about this new district. But, you know, whether you're a small religious organization or you're the state's largest religious organization, you find yourself focusing on long-term values of culture, community, and art. When we think of long-term, we're not thinking 5 years, 10 years, we're thinking decades. You know, both of the churches on that street have been there for 100 years. So we think differently about long-term. When the city backed the Japantown street plan a few years ago, it made a decision to do something in the long term, to think long term. And now in the weeks, months ahead, you as council, you have what is truly a defining moment in front of you. You have a choice between two right answers: supporting short-term profits or thinking long-term values of community, culture, and art. And we hope, and the answer will simply depend on how you want to be perceived in the world. And we think, and we hope, that you'll come down on the favor of long-term choices. Thank you.
Next is Rocky Anderson, followed by Stephanie Burdick, and then Megan Murphy. Rocky's here in person.
Good evening. Is the Smith Entertainment Group project really your top and only priority for the expenditure of precious additional sales tax revenues in our city? If $1 billion were raised through tax increases, I submit the people of this community would prioritize over subsidizing a billionaire for his hockey arena and so-called revitalization zone such goals as improving our dangerous air quality, eliminating homelessness, improving our city's infrastructure, expanding and maintaining open space, providing far more affordable housing that will not be subject to ever-increasing housing markets, saving the Great Salt Lake, implementing the Rio Grande Plan, increasing access to health care, providing more mass transit options, and providing affordable child care. All of those would be, you might give or take for some people, but they would be the priorities of those people you're representing over subsidizing the Smith Entertainment Group. You have a duty to the people of this community to be guided by us concerning what our values are and how we want any additional tax revenues spent to reflect those values. We will not stand for you or the county messing with a Bravenel Hall, including the plaza out in front, and I hope you've gotten that message loud and clear. And if there is any threat of raising or significantly altering a Bravenel Hall, then just say no to the tax increase. You do.
Time.
Thank you for your comment. Please refrain from clapping. Reminder about clapping. Thank you.
Next will be Stephanie Burdick, followed by Megan Murphy, and then Drew Fallon. Stephanie's here in person.
Hi, Stephanie Burdick. I'm a Salt Lake City resident. I speak for myself, but most of my days are spent with those and advocating for those who may not ever afford a ticket to an NBA or an NHL game. I've loved sports my whole life, and I've spent more hours on an ice rink than I can count. And while I do think sports are worthy of public investment, respectfully, this just ain't it. As a sports lover, I know a few things about sports. Sports leagues essentially operate as cartels, placing massive barriers to entry, and sports owners maintain a monopoly with excess pricing power over consumers. Using fans' emotional attachment that we have to a team, periodically sports owners across America threaten to leave, and they demand that public financing of their operational expenses on top of their existing publicly subsidized land lease. So I'm not really surprised that SEG has asked for this, as that is what most sports owners do. But is it too much to ask that the city plays hard to get? I'd like to see the city negotiate stronger to get benefits that actually do benefit the Salt Lakers that I'm here to fight for. Instead of bringing all the leverage that Salt Lake City has to offer, it appears that at least some elected officials have assumed a position of weakness, which I find entirely unnecessary. If SEG wants to invest in us to invest in their business, it would be great for them to start with more transparency. Thorough analysis should include existing benefits SEG receives from the city, what their profit margins look like, net worth of Ryan and Ashley Smith, current distribution of wages and benefits of all SEG employees, and outsourced contracts such as levy restaurants, etc. We need to make sure that there's adequate return on our investment, that we are not subsidizing businesses that do not invest in living wages. We need to make sure that the power is not inappropriately seized in the process. I'd like to see the good people of SEG commit to ensuring residents of the city will not lose agency and political power in this process, which is a concern if you look at Senate Bill 273, where an unelected special district board can decide to get rid of our county elected DA. I love the idealism of
time.
Please send the rest of your comment through email.
Next will be Megan Murphy, followed by Drew Fallon, and then Daniel Chung. Megan, you may now unmute.
Taylor, Megan's online, right?
Yes, looks like they are unable to unmute, so I will message with them and we can move on to Drew Fallon, followed by Daniel Chung, and then Ed Robertson. Drew is here in person.
Good evening. I'd like to thank the councilors for the amount of time they've spent on this issue tonight. I'm sure you all have places you'd rather be. I am here to urge a revision to this plan before it gets passed. I spoke this morning to the county council on the subject of a Bravenel Hall, so I'll keep my comments on that brief. but suffice it to say that a rebuild of a Bravenel Hall is simply not feasible. The price tag would be over $200 million more than the renovations, and we would likely end up with a worse hall. Add that $200 million to the $900 million that Mr. Smith would already like to saddle on the backs of Salt Lake City citizens who are already languishing under a housing market that is in the 88th percentile of metropolitan areas nationwide. Mr. Smith argues that the economic benefits of his plan outweigh the cost. However, I would argue that, of course he would say that, he stands to profit the most. Also, most of the jobs that would be created by this plan are food service jobs, an industry which is simultaneously among the most profitable and lowest paying. Yet another way that the rich get richer. Finally, councilors, I would like to ask that you consider how this issue involves transportation reform. I would encourage the councilors to look into the Rio Grande plan. This plan to expand light rail access to downtown and reconnect the west side of the city after decades of division would fit perfectly in with the SEG plan and must be part of the conversation for the future of Salt Lake's downtown. This would be an egalitarian way of going about change for the future. Just as an example, this map shows all the areas dedicated solely to parking within a 2-block distance of the Delta Center.
Time.
Thank
you. Next will be Daniel Chung, followed by Ed Robertson, and then Justin Robertson. Daniel, you may now unmute.
Thank you, and good evening, council members. My name is Daniel Chung, and I'm a member, trustee, and former chair of the board of the Japanese Church of Christ. I'm also on the board of the JCPC and a member of Next Gen. I'm here to express support for our community and to ask this council to be champions and supporters for the Japantown community. When I walk through the doors of our church's chapel and feel the warmth coming through the stained glass window, I feel at home. When there are festivals, services, memorials, and events, I remember the hopes, dreams, and challenges of the century of people who came before me. Okage-sama de. I am who I am because of them. We've stood before this council time and again in response to proposals to reimagine our neighborhood and our community. We do look forward to collaborating with the city, the county, and SEG, but this council has the ability and responsibility to hold this project accountable to the lofty promises and commitments that they are sharing with us and with you. Your council will be reviewing zoning changes in the proposed participation agreement's terms, including the boundaries of the project area. Development should not come at the expense and erasure of history and community. We ask that your doors continue to be open throughout the whole process. This year marks 100 years since the historic chapel of the JCC was built. Our concerns are not simply about receiving a token cut of public or private funds or investment. Our concern is existential. Physical demolition is not the only way that a history and a people are erased. Streets are darkened, buildings damaged, histories forgotten, promises broken. I echo my friend's request to require the developers to meet with the Japantown community regularly and to ensure that the community is not just included, but integral to the development process moving forward. As the conversations continue, we ask that you think of our community and refer to it not just as the Capital City Revitalization Zone or as a sports, entertainment, culture, and convention district, but also as it all once was, Japantown, Salt Lake City. Thank you.
Next will be Ed Robertson, followed by Justin Robertson, and then Gopi Vyal. Ed is here in person.
Council, and thanks to all of these folks that have stuck around here. I am not a citizen of Salt Lake City. I'm not Buddhist. I'm not a hockey player. I am a transplanted Texan. So why am I here? Well, back in Texas, there's a term that says, when you are invested in something, we say you have a dog in that hunt. I happen to have a dog in this hunt in a number of different ways. One, I married into this community. So this young lady back here brought me into this world, so to speak. So I became part, even though I'm not Buddhist either, I'm part of the Buddhist church community. I'm part of the Japanese American community. Both of my sons, by the way, play hockey. So I got a dog in that hunt as well. What I see is an unprecedented opportunity that's been presented here, but it has to be approached very carefully and mindfully because I'm also a student of history. And there are so many elements of what's going on here that are valuable and important to this community, not only today, thank you, Floyd, but for years in our future. So I am very much invested in this process. I think it's important that change happens. This is not an option. Change is going to happen regardless of what our thoughts are here today or what your opinions are here today. Salt Lake is great and it has the opportunity to become even greater. However, it's very important to make sure that those voices are heard, the folks that are coming behind me and the folks that came before me. I think there's a middle place here, and it's just important that we be mindful of that and take advantage of this opportunity. There are 3 Japan towns remaining in the United States. Salt Lake City has the opportunity to invest in what could be number 4.
Next is Justin Robertson, followed by Gopi Vyaya, and then Christopher J. Justin is here in person.
Oh, is it working? Okay, here we go. I actually submitted my note to be written, but I'll just second that by using my voice as well. But I too represent the Japanese American community. That was my dad who just spoke. And so I've grown up here in Utah attending the Salt Lake City Buddhist Temple. And it's a big part of my culture. It represents a lot of my life. And we want to protect what is left of our community because for a lot of us, it's been something that's stood for generations. And it's been something that's built by our ancestors. And with everything that is being proposed here, yes, I do love hockey, but I don't want it to affect my Japanese heritage either. And so everyone up here has a voice, and each of you represent your own cultures. And so we basically ask here that you guys use your voices to help each other out. We're all representatives of our communities, and in order to stick around longer, we need to help each other out. So thank you.
Next is Gopi Vyaya, followed by Christopher J. and then Virginia Pierce. Gopi is here in person.
Hi, my name is Gopi, and I work for a nonprofit called the Foundation for Cultural Renewal. So this whole topic is kind of in a bailiwick. And what I'd like to speak about is kind of the elephant in the room. Something we're not considering is all of this is happening because the power of Ryan Smith's checkbook. So basically, he decides one fine day that, oh, I smell a business opportunity, let's do this. And meanwhile, I don't want to invest all of the money. Let's get the citizens to pay for a bunch of it. And that's how we are all scurrying about right now and trying to talk about it. I'm kind of astonished and shocked that this proposal is even being considered just because it's kind of wrapped up in a lot of pretty words to make it appeal to the public. Because it obviously has nothing to do with helping the revival. All that's going to revitalize is the bank balances of these people. And if they were really serious about revitalizing that place, then all of these people that came and spoke here, they would have been consulted first, not at the end, not at the fag end, when all of this is happening and we are having to stop the avalanche from just going over our house. And most importantly, the respect that has to be shown for those who are already in the cultural sphere is absolutely zero. So in the light of all of this, this is pretty much an example of the disdain that is showed to the common citizens, and you get them to pay for the circus, and then you get them to like it and try to convince them so that they're all on board. And if anybody says anything, you throw a few crumbs around, hoping the opportunists will jump on and support it. So please don't vote for this.
Next will be Christopher J., followed by Virginia Pierce, and then Nathan Carlin. Christopher is here in person.
Christopher, are you here? Let's move on to the next comment and circle back if Christopher's here.
Next will be Virginia Pierce, followed by Nathan Carlin, and then Janie Iwamoto. Virginia is here in person.
Hello, I'm Virginia Pierce. I am a board member of UMOCA and a longtime supporter of the arts here in Salt Lake City. I've spent the last 10 years in state government, so I understand the cost and opportunity of working at the speed of business. I also spent many years at Sundance Institute, and the founder, Robert Redford, used to always say, we have to include an artist at the table. And that was really prevalent throughout everything that we did in the early days of Sundance and influenced me greatly, and it really continues to influence the kind of work that I do. And so I would encourage you all as you look towards this amazing opportunity, and I really do think that we should take advantage of it, is to keep an artist at the table. We have a whole lot of artists, both with the symphony and UMOCA, that would be excited to reimagine what downtown looks like. So, I encourage you to vote for this tax, but also keep an artist in your head. Thank you.
Next will be Nathan Carlin, followed by Janie Iwamoto, and then Austin Abgett. Nathan, you may now unmute.
Good evening. The benefits of this project are certainly exciting, and I look forward to the development of this area. However, I do have a concern the city should consider. The number of people expected to attend these events in the area can be a possible conflict with existing car traffic, which can make it unsafe for those not in a vehicle. As a resident of the area, during events at the Delta Center, I've seen close calls and aggressive driving from motorists on 300 West due to the slowdowns caused by the increased foot traffic. During the All-Star event, 300 West was closed in the area, which did make the event safer, but I don't see this kind of care taken during other events going on right now. For the project to succeed, I suggest a tighter integration with transit services and possible considerations for how future transit developments can link with the Delta Center, like the Rio Grande plan. Having this focus on getting people in and out of the area by transit will decrease the cost of having to consider parking structures, which alone can eat up a lot of the developmental cost. So I asked the council and Smith's entertainment group to consider priorities towards transit connectivity, removal of car lanes, and removal of parking for this plan to have the intended effect, which is walkability as a necessity. Thank you.
Next will be Janie Iwamoto, followed by Austin Abgett, and then Jeff Novak. Janie's here in person.
Fast, and I wasn't planning to speak, but because I've said general comment before, but I just wanted to go over, and I'm so proud of the youth that we have that have come forward to speak. And I just want to go over the late 1960s was devastating. And I hear that, I know this, but every time I think about it, over 90 structures were taken mostly by eminent domain. And all that was left is the two churches. And these were only the structures that were put in the Utah NEPO, so we know there were more that were taken, but that's what was advertised. And in the 2000s, we started the Japanese Community Preservation Committee, and many developments we've had, and Judge Uno was there in the beginning in the 2000s, and we were very active reactionary many times to the Salt Pellets expansion, the Convention Hotel, and then Block 67. But also we gained partnerships with the city and county and state. Some of the things we did though was the garden, and I wanted to say that was important to me, and I thank Dan Hayes from SMG for talking about that, because it was not just to honor our descendants, but it was acted as a buffer and to give light to our church because of the height that was being built. And so I want to remember that. I know that's a planning commission issue in the future. And we have grown since then too. I wanted to talk about the Japanese Church of Christ because now we have a Tongan community that uses our church, and a Kachin, and I know that our Tongan pastor, I sent you a letter from him because he couldn't be here, and also Pastor Franz Davis, who wrote a letter as well.
but we've grown with Asian Association of Utah. The Japanese Church of Christ is celebrating their 100th year anniversary today. Oh my gosh, okay, and it's a landmark. And Abravanel Hall, I've had many partners come about Abravanel Hall, and we love Abravanel Hall too. And many members have.
Next is Austin Abigate, followed by Jeff Novak, and then Millie Magdala. Austin is here in person.
The main theme we seem to be dealing here tonight is the prioritization of business interests, sports, more, face it, base concerns with our deeper cultural indications, the social implications of even considering tearing down a architectural, I wouldn't call it a masterpiece, but a very nice building that will be supporting high culture, high art, taking a look at actual like folk cultural roots also down the street. If you support these business interests and sports in the face of all these things, you should really, would you be able to sleep with would you be able to live with yourself after overturning everything that you've heard tonight? Thank you.
Next will be Jeff Novak, followed by Billy Magdala, and then Brooke Smith. Jeff is here in person.
Hi, Jeff Novak, Salt Lake. I actually filled out a card at the bathroom break and then just left it on the table, and I was sleeping in the corner and you called my name, so I better have something to say. I'm here to represent the taxpayers of Salt Lake City. Googled it, 210,000 people, you maybe agree, paying 0.5%. None of us are represented. I mean, there's very few of the 210,000 who are going to be paying that 0.5% tax are represented here today. And that includes children who are buying candy, single moms who are going to the grocery store and buying milk, paying 0.5%. I don't know if they're going to a hockey game, but that is taxation without representation on a fluke. I can't even see how you can go out and justify raising 210,000 people's taxes to 0.5% to pay for a steamrolling event. And I agree with Mr. Anderson, just say no to the tax. It's over. Adjourn. No to the sales tax. Thanks for your time.
Next is Billy Magdala, followed by Brooke Smith. Billy's here in person.
My name is Billy Moskella. I'm a business owner in Salt Lake City. My comment will be brief. I remember fondly upon the days when the Roman consuls built sports entertainment complexes to distract the masses from the decaying morality of the empire. Tell me, how'd that work out?
I know we're getting to the end of a long night, but.
And next is Brooke Smith. Brooke, you may now unmute.
Thank you. Can you hear me?
Yes, we can hear you.
Thank you. So I'll try to be quick. Some of the my comments or thoughts have been stated earlier.
Brooke, we did hear you. Are you still there?
Yes, I'm here. Am I on?
Brooke, just so you know, in the room, the audio is very low. I'm looking at our team. Is there anything we can do to help that, or is that a mic settings issue? It's probably a mic settings issue, is what we're hearing.
I can try to speak up.
We can hear you now. Go ahead.
Okay. So I'll try to be quick. Again, in support of the many of the individuals who have spoken earlier this evening, especially those from the Japanese American community. I do thank the City Council for the opportunity to speak, and also to Mr. Mon from the Smith Entertainment Group for being here and sharing his vision and insight. That said, my thoughts are as follows. We know that obviously to generate revenue for the city and state to function at a high level, it requires an investment. And in part, we know that our sales tax contribute to that pool. I'm not speaking on that today, but rather my concern for the potential loss of the cultural heritage in the area, specifically the geographic area known as Japantown on First South between 2nd and 3rd West. We know that many Japanese businesses, as Ms. Iwamoto stated earlier, were tragically put out of business, displaced, or destroyed once already when the Salt Palace was built in the late 60s. You know, the two respective sacred places of worship in a Japanese Church of Christ, as well as the Salt Lake Buddhist Temple, are the only two that still remain. With this in mind, I'm encouraging and pleading with the Smith Entertainment Group as well as the city government to find a way for the proposed redevelopment plan to avoid forcing the two churches out of their current location. You know, keeping in mind, even boxing them in amongst, you know, skyscraper, apartment, condo, or office buildings would be unacceptable from the viewpoint of many. You know, we, of course, under the President Roosevelt's direction, forced more than 100,000 Japanese American citizens into internment camps during World War II. And with that as a backdrop, ask yourselves this: is it worth it to take away their local place of worship? How would you feel if it was your last place?
That was the final registered commenter for this item.
We've made it, folks. All right. Seeing that we are done with public comment, I guess I should get my script back.
Mr. Chair,
I think I'm looking for a motion.
I move that the council continue the public hearing to a future council meeting.
Second.
Okay, I have a motion from Councilmember Puy and a second from Councilmember Lopez Chavez. The motion is to continue the public hearing. Is there any discussion to this motion? Seeing none, I will call the question. All those in favor say aye.
Aye.
Aye. Any opposed say nay. So that motion carries unanimously. Council members, I think maybe we should take another short break before we move on with the rest of the agenda. Just very short, while we let everybody that shuffle
Mr.
out.
Chair, should we specify a time? 5 minutes?
Let's say a 5-minute break.
Okay, so at 10:30.
much. We are now on to Section H of our agenda. Section H is potential action items. This brings us to item H1, which is an ordinance for the ballpark station area rezone and text amendments, creation of the MU8 zoning. I will look for a motion.
Mr. Chair, I move that the council adopt the ordinance amending various sections of Title 21A of the Salt Lake City Code to create the form-based mixed-use 8 sub-district.
Second.
All right, the motion is from Councilmember Dugan. The second is from Councilmember Wharton. Is there any discussion to this motion? Seeing none, all in favor say aye.
Aye. Aye.
Any opposed say nay. That passes unanimously with Councilmember Pui absent. We are going to move on to item H2, which is an ordinance for the MU8 zone sign text amendments. I will look for a motion.
Mr. Chair, I move that the council adopt the ordinance.
Second.
Okay, motion is from Councilmember Dugan, second from Councilmember Wharton. Any discussion of the motion? Seeing none, all those in favor say aye.
Aye.
Aye. Any opposed say nay. That passes unanimously with Councilmember Pui absent. We are on to item H3. Item H3 is the ballpark station area rezone text amendments. I will look for a motion.
You need to recuse yourself.
I need to recuse myself from the next one.
Yes. So this is most of the properties, but
This
they
is all the
exclude-
properties except 2.
Okay. Yes.
Oh, okay. Sorry.
Be recused from in a moment.
I move the council adopt the ordinance rezoning multiple parcels of the ballpark station area plan pursuant to the accompanying ordinance and exhibit.
Second.
Okay, I have a motion from Councilmember Wharton, a second from Councilmember Pui. All those in favor say aye. Oh, any discussion to this motion? Seeing none, all those in favor say aye.
Aye.
Any opposed say nay. Okay, I will be recused from the next item, Madam Chair.
Who, me?
No,
No, me. I'll take it.
Madam Chair.
Pause. He is not
Pause.
recused enough yet.
Sorry. Only partial.
He is fully recused. I'll look for a motion.
I move that the council adopt the ordinance rezoning 2 parcels located at 1058 and 1064 South West Temple to form-based urban neighborhood 2.
Second. I have a motion from Councilmember Wharton, a second from Councilwoman Lopez Chavez. Any discussion? All those in favor?
Aye. Aye.
All those opposed? All right, we'll move on to item H5.
Madam Chair.
I'll look for a motion.
I move that the council adopt the ordinance subject to the following additional requirements to be included in the contemplated development agreement. 1, a minimum of 5% of dwelling units, which units shall be proportional in size and bedroom count to the overall ratio of unit sizes in the project, shall be offered at 80% of area median income for a period of no less than 15 years from the date a certificate of occupancy is issued for the dwelling units. 2, provide a minimum of half parking spaces per dwelling unit within the development. And 3, provide a minimum of 1 parking space per 1,000 square feet of commercial space within the development.
Second.
I have a motion from Councilmember Pui, a second from Councilmember Wharton. Is there any discussion on this? All those in favor? Aye.
Aye.
Opposed? That passes unanimously. Someone please welcome Councilmember Mono back for the rest.
And just to clarify, Councilmember Mono was recused from that previous item as well. So.
Thank you. Okay. H6. Okay. We are on to item H6. I will look for a motion.
Move the council adopt the ordinance.
Second.
Okay. The motion is by Councilmember Wharton to adopt the ordinance, second by Councilmember Dugan. Any discussion to this motion? Seeing none, all those in favor say aye.
Aye.
Any opposed say nay. I'm a nay on that one, so that passes 6-1. Okay. We are now on item H7.
Mr. Chair.
All right.
Sure.
Go ahead, Councilmember Dugan.
I move that the council adopt an ordinance amending the fiscal year 2024 final budget of the Salt Lake City, including the employment staffing document, only for items as shown on the motion sheet. I further move that the council request on item A5, which is a traffic signal for 2200 West and 2100 North intersection, to increase that to a roundabout with the temporary intersection safety intervention done there for $900,000. $850,000 would be for the roundabout, and $50,000 would be for the temporary safety interventions of that intersection.
Second.
Okay, the motion is from Councilmember Dugan, and the second is from Councilmember Pui. I'm just following along on the motion. That is motion number one, right?
Yes.
Only motion number one at this point.
Correct.
Okay, is there any discussion to this motion? Councilmember Petro?
Can you restate the A5 stipulations you just put in that motion?
For the A5, so it'd be the roundabout with the installation of a temporary safety interventions at that intersection. And that's where I said $900,000 for $50,000 for that temporary intersection, so that the transportation can define that at that point. So the temporary side of that.
So I think the difference is that instead of installing a traffic signal immediately, the intention would be from your motion to fund a roundabout with a temporary intervention in the meantime.
Yes.
We might need to come back to the administration might need to come back if there's not sufficient funding to fund a roundabout. So I'm just wanting to make sure we know that.
Yes.
Okay.
My priority is to make sure whatever temporary intervention we have is the first best funded.
Yes.
Because there is an immediate urgent need that's been disclosed by traffic has identified it that way. So as long as there's ample funding for a temporary light that would ameliorate the safety concerns while we move towards that, I'm happy with the rest of anything we propose.
Is there any other discussion of this?
I'm sorry. I need you to explain one more time what the proposal.
So
I'll
this is
add to the
different from what was
question.
discussed earlier today.
Right.
So I think the proposal is to fund a roundabout and then have a intervention in knowing that a roundabout may take several years to design and engineer and probably will take more funding than is currently available. There would be a temporary safety intervention, which would be determined by the transportation department in the meantime.
Yes.
Councilor Dugan, I have a question to your motion. Has the transportation division weighed in, or professional transportation engineers, that a roundabout is appropriate at that?
Yes,
location?
I talked to the transportation, and that's where the $850. That's what the $850,000 price tag came up with, and they also did say that it would be a safer intersection by having a roundabout by a traffic light. So that's where I came about. But Councilmember Petro said she would request a temporary safety enhancement there or intervention there, because of the roundabout will take a little bit longer than the traffic light. A traffic light, to me, is not going to be safer, and it's also going to be, air quality is going to be worse because you're going to have people stop there for a long time.
Okay, so the budget amendment that we received, the proposal that we received was $450,000 for a traffic light. Your proposal is to go to $900,000, $850,000 of which is for a roundabout, and $50,000 is for a temporary safety measure.
Yes.
I guess I'm assuming, since this is the first I've heard of this, so assuming that professional traffic engineers, because I've suggested plenty of things to traffic division and they've given me really good reasons why my brilliant idea wasn't a brilliant idea. So I guess maybe I'm asking city attorney for how I can vote on this with the caveat that it be reviewed by engineers. Maybe I can't ask you that. Sorry.
I'm trying to think of the condition. Sorry, I don't know the background of why this has been changed in the budget amendment at this moment, but I think that you could approve it with, requiring some feedback that it's, or like some reporting possibly, that the roundabout is the appropriate traffic safety measure.
I could also just say this much. I know we're discussing it at this point. I would say we strike A5 and we come back at a later date to get some more clarity on this.
I'd like
idea.
it.
I agree.
That would be
Can I clarify, this budget amendment is allowed to stay open past the end of the 2024 budget? Because we're getting precariously
We
close
try not
to
to
that.
do that from a logistical tracking standpoint. If you think that you could get sufficient information by June 4th, you have a formal meeting on June 4th and on June 11th where you could finalize this budget amendment if you wanted to pull that item out.
May I suggest something else? We usually do this.
Is your microphone on?
We usually do this in the work session, but it shouldn't be the first time for most of us to hear about this because you brought it up in the work session last time. But I remember this because we talked about the runabout, but I didn't know that we were ready to do that. That's the piece that I'm missing. But I'm okay with pulling it, but I'm concerned about the urgency matter on this. Could we approve the piece that allows for something that to be decided right now for the administration to implement something faster? Because the neighbors, mentioned so much about the traffic. So while we decide and confirm with the administration that this may be the right approach, could we approve the portion of that item 5 that you suggest related to the?
I apologize for bringing this up at the late idea because I thought I had some buy-in by a number of people on this already, and I think we got a twist there on the temporary side of the house. That number, the $50,000, I apologize. That was just an estimation on my part. So I don't know how much that is. So I think waiting a couple weeks is not going to hurt us that much. So I would just say we strike it at this point. So my motion will be everything I said, striking A5 for motion 1.
And I agree to the second then.
Okay.
Do I need to read?
Not to deny A5, to hold it open.
To hold it open, right.
Yeah, I think it would be important to clarify that just so that we know.
So here's my...
Clarify for the record.
Yeah.
Okay.
I move the council adopt an ordinance amending the fiscal year 2024 final budget of Salt Lake City, including the employment staffing document, only for the items as shown in the motion sheet, except action A5.
Second.
I seconded that already. Yeah.
All right, great. The motion is from Council Member Dugan, and was it Pui that first?
Yeah.
Seconded? Okay. We've discussed this motion. Do we all understand?
And the intention of that is that A5 is still open.
Still open, not denied, held open. Okay, great.
I would like to speak to that motion.
Oh, go ahead, Councilor Wharton.
I think that I'm also in favor of reducing vehicle emissions. I'm in favor of planning for the future and having a roundabout that is more safe. I am concerned about, I don't think that we should be sort of re-engineering or revisioning projects like at the final scope and telling, this to me feels like pretty in the weeds for a council to be making the decision. So I'm okay with going back and asking transportation what they would recommend for this, and that there is an interest in looking a little bit further into the future about a roundabout. But like, I don't think that this is the right way to generally make these decisions.
All right. So we have a couple more weeks to on item A5. I will call the question. Is that all right? Okay. All those in favor say aye.
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 Any opposed say nay. Okay, that motion passes unanimously.
Mr. Chair, second
Councilmember
motion.
Lopez Chavez.
I further move that the council also approves item D7 for open streets events in the Granary District and on Main Street downtown in 2024. The total funding is $310,288, of which $250,288 is a rescope of the unused funds from prior year downtown open Main Street events, and $60,000 is from general fund balance. The funding is split $190,000 for the Granary District and $60,288 for Main Street downtown, contingent upon the contract including addressing bike infrastructure and encouraging alternative transportation.
Second.
Okay, the motion is from Councilmember Lopez Chavez. The second is from Councilmember Pui. Is there any discussion to this part of the motion?
I'd just like to thank the administration for the quick ability to be malleable, and this has been a great win, and I'm excited to see this through.
I will also love to, recognize that the feedback from the community shaped up this, and so I thank the administration for that.
Yeah, thank you for that.
Yeah.
All right. Okay. I will call the question. All those in favor say aye.
Aye.
Aye. Any opposed say nay. Okay, that passes unanimously.
Mr. Chair, motion to adjourn.
Do we have a...
We have general comment
No,
period.
we have general comment.
I'll have to get through general comment.
I wish I could accept that motion, but I cannot. Okay. Sorry. We are on I, right? Comments. Okay. We are on section I. Item I1 is questions to the mayor from the city council. Council members, are there any questions for the mayor? Mayor, thank you for being here and for staying late with us. Item I2 is comments to the city council. This is our general comment portion, and we are now open for comments from the public on any item that is of interest, even not on an agenda topic. I've said the rules of decorum 100 times, so I won't do that again. You all know they all apply here as well. And so I will now turn to Taylor to call our general commenters.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. We have 6 people registered for general comment. The first will be Misty Myers, followed by Natalie Brooks, and then N Canada. Misty, you may now unmute.
Hi, City Council. I know it's been a really long night and you've been here pretty much all day listening to people's comments, and I'm not going to reiterate kind of the disappointment I feel for the budget right now, because it kind of feels like we're focusing on things that already kind of have enough money, like the mayor and the police department, and like, like a sport facility. They seem like they already have enough funding. I feel like I'd really enjoy it if I saw more funding towards more things that would actually help the community, like decreasing the wage gap, or like helping the homeless, or like, helping like build a lake and things like that. I also just kind of wanted to chime in and remind you guys that it doesn't cost you any extra tax dollars to help our ceasefire in Palestine or in Gaza. It is really just a statement just to put pressure on our president. It wouldn't cost you anything extra. I'm just reminding you this because I feel like with all the disappointment I've heard in this budget today, just having one win would be very lovely and very nice. And thank you.
Next will be Natalie Brooks, followed by N Canada, and then Riley Hewlett. Natalie, you may now unmute. I will message with Natalie. We'll move on to N Canada, followed by Riley Hewlett, and then Wendy Garvin. And you may now unmute.
N Canada, District 5. Yesterday, the ICC placed arrest warrants for Hamas and Israeli leaders and charged Israel with the following: starvation as a method of warfare, willfully causing great suffering